All systems go?
Yes.
Okay. So let me introduce myself. I'm David Williams, and I'm chairing this evening's meeting. I represent Harpenden North as a town councillor. And on my left?
I'm Heather Scott. I'm the officer from the Town Council who clerks this meeting.
And I'm Pip Martin, the East Ward Town Councillor.
I'm Harry Gillam, Harpenden South Town Councillor.
Excellent. Now, I know we've got apologies for absence from Councillor Cash.
We have indeed, yes.
Okay. Go on to the second item on the agenda then, any declarations of interest?
Yes, I would like to declare a pecuniary interest in item 5, fitting 2619. The supposed dwelling more or less borders my parents' house.
That's the property at 11 Float.
11 Float Close,
Okay,
yes.
right. If you can raise it again when we come round to
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
that'd be great. Okay, the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of September 2015. Can I sign that as a true record?
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. I will just do that for now.
Okay. Thank you.
Any public questions?
No, none have been received.
Okay, so we're going to be looking at applications registered the weekend in 25th of September and then the weekend in the 2nd of October. So we have got letters of objection in relation to the application for land to the rear of 10 and 12 Jameson Road, and those are
There's some further letters of objection that are tabled in front of you today, which relate to Jameson Road, to the application at Cranbourne Drive, and also 9 in the Woodlands.
okay. So from page 19 onwards, we've got a number of representations in respect to Jameson Road that have been received by the town council. Okay, having noted that, shall we get into the individual applications then? And I take it that most of you are here in relation to the land to the rear of Jameson Road? No?
Is anyone here for anything different than Jameson Road?
Yes, Cranbourne Drive.
Right, okay, that's fine, okay.
Well,
Thank you.
we'll take Jameson Road first then. And can we just get the some of the plans out first, Hannah?
Yes,
and just
of
so we can orientate ourselves
Yep.
familiar with.
Absolutely. Now, I believe we've got Jackie Hale to speak against the application, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Come up and just take a seat, Jackie, and I'll just get these papers out. Now, there's quite a bit here, so I've sort of weeded out the ones which I think are the most sort of relevant, really, for the application.
And I take it there's nobody speaking for the
I haven't received a...
No.
No, I haven't received any communication from them.
Would you like this book back on your table?
It's fine, you can just leave it over there.
Oh,
That's fine, thank you. I'll pick it up at the end. Right, so basically the plans that are pulled out show the outline of the application that was refused by the inspector when it went to appeal, and then essentially the scheme as it was proposed in the new application. And then there is a landscape aerial view there which will help to just set the scene. There you go. And this is quite a good application. It's quite a good piece of drawing which shows under the different colours and shading what the footprint was of the previously refused application in the year.
Okay, so before I keep asking Jackie to speak then, are there any points of clarification that anybody wants to ask? Because obviously this is quite an unusual site. It's obviously a backland site. It's quite difficult to access. We may have seen it from either Jameson Road or Dale Close, or from some of the properties round about, but we won't have actually been able to get onto the site. So I just invite any clarification, if anybody needs it, before we kick off. Right? Okay, Jackie, we're relatively informal at these meetings, but we do ask you to speak for 3 minutes and make your point, and then we will consider the rest of the application.
Well, good evening. My name is Jackie Hale of 16 Dell Close, and I speak on behalf of many neighbours affected by the proposed development at 10 and 12 Jameson Road. So before I go into specifics of our objections, I just want to say that we're not opposed to a suitable development on this site. However, our view, and it's a view which is shared by Neil Farnsworth of Farnsworth Planning Consultancy, whose report will provide more detail, and I hope everyone's received a copy by now, is that this application fails to suitably address the issues raised within the last appeal decision. It also continues to contravene policies 69 and 70 of the St Albans District Local Plan Review and poses harm to the surrounding area. Firstly, this proposal is still a clear overdevelopment of the site, as the overbearing size and design of the proposed dwellings remain out of character with the surrounding properties. Secondly, the plans circulated by Beechwood Homes are inaccurate, showing distances between buildings to be further than they actually scale. Thirdly, the height and elevation of the development would result in an unacceptable visual impact, reduced light and daylight to neighbouring gardens, and impact on privacy to some existing properties. In terms of overdevelopment, while some issues have been addressed since the last appeal decision, the footprints of the new dwellings remain excessive and non-complementary to the surrounding area. Plots 1, 2 and 3 should be read in conjunction with Stonemason and Dell Close, but are far larger. Plots 4 and 5 need to fit in with Westfield Avenue and Jameson Road, but are overdeveloped and too dense to reflect the character and openness of these roads. In addition, there are issues with insufficient parking spaces, which contravene St Albans regulations, and no wheel bin storage, which is highlighted in the Farnsworth report. In terms of the plans drawn up and circulated by Beechwood Homes, a major concern is that there are a number of scaling inaccuracies, all of which serve to make the proposed development appear more spacious and open on paper. The issue regarding the distance to my house at number 16 was addressed from the previous application and is now shown as 23 metres from plot 2 and 3 on the site drawing and the 1 to 200 section. However, this is inaccurate and actually measures 22 metres. Regardless of this inaccuracy, it's still much less than the guideline of 27 metres. Similar inaccuracies affect 22 Dell Close, 3 Stonemason and 4 Stonemason Close. In addition, 7 Westfield Avenue is currently undergoing construction of a rear extension which is not shown on any plans. This would place plot 1 within 1 metre of 7 Westfield Avenue. With regards to the issue of height and elevation, the proposed dwelling still remains significantly higher than any of those of the affected properties in Dell Close. And as they are higher on the slope and due to their size, they would throw our sunny south-facing gardens into shade for most of the day outside of peak summertime, and would increase the overbearing impact on Stonemason and more particularly Dell Close. Plot 3 in particular would look directly into the bedroom and bathroom windows of Dell Close, 16 Dell Close, from their main living areas. Now, the last application included comprehensive section drawings showing relative levels of the properties in Westfield Avenue, the development, and Dell Close. The proposals fail to overcome the inherent complexity of this sloping site, especially in terms of the overbearing nature of the proposed dwelling and the impact on privacy of the surrounding residents. The new application masks these issues by omitting clear indication of relative levels. We would question why these have been omitted. In closing, whilst this application does attempt to address some of the issues identified by the appeal decision, resulting in adjustments being made to plots 1, 2 and 3, the application still imposes harm, particularly on the neighbouring properties in Dell Close. We recommend that this application is again refused for failing to suitably address the issues raised within the last appeal decision and for failing to comply with the policies of St Albans local plan and national planning policy.
Thank you, Jackie. If you'd like to go back to your seat. Right. Can I kick this off by raising one issue which is quite significantly different from the previous application, and that's plots 4 and 5, because the existing application was going to retain the existing property. But now there's a proposal to put the two properties side by side here on Jameson Road. And that's obviously an issue that wasn't considered as part of the appeal, because it wasn't part of the original proposal. And I think it would be quite useful just to get our views on that first and foremost. And if that's a bit of, if we see some issues there, then it may then have an impact upon what we consider in terms of plots 1, 2 and 3. So plots 4 and 5, unlike the other properties, these are being constructed on 3 stories, I think I'm right saying, aren't they?
Yeah, they've got the sort of the photographic ones. They are actually artist impressions, those two there. Yeah, in a sense, they're building in the roof.
And I have to say, if the issues for me is the first issue is the way that plot 4 sort of sits. It's sort of tucked in the corner and is, behind the main sweep of Jameson Road that goes around the corner there, and then there's a separate garage off to one side. So an issue for me is how that's located on the plot, and then the amount of room separating the 2 properties. In his submission, the Farnsworth Planning Consultancy, he makes concerns about, he expresses some concerns about the design of the 2 properties. They're too similar, and he's concerned about the geometrics of the fenestration. But it's quite difficult to be that objective about the design. The designs don't seem too out of place, and I think, is it 7A and 7 further down Jameson Road that are sort of new, sort of relatively new installs. So I think a couple of things for us to issue. One is the massing between the 2 properties side by side on this corner of the plot, and the way then that number 4 sits behind. We shouldn't use the term building line, but effectively the line of the property that goes round Jameson Road. The other thing I don't like, I have to say, is the fact that the garage for number 5 is tucked around the back, which is not very practical. Presume. Are they proposing that there's some parking at the front there?
I think so, because this house here has got parking there, and then number 4 in a sense is the one behind the other.
2 driveways, well, the single length drive, but single width driveway. Okay. So, have you got any observations about? Do you feel strongly about the proposal in relation to 4 and 5?
Well, as highlighted, I think the space between the two properties isn't particularly big.
I think it's a metre. Is it a metre, or is it more?
Only a metre between 2 properties.
I'm not.
They haven't actually really provided any. Well, obviously I can't scale it for these plans, unfortunately. I mean, I can probably get that one up there and scale it, but most of the paper plans that are provided are essentially elevations and floor plans. They don't have. No, I mean that one there. Okay, let me just have a look. This one I can probably scale a bit. I mean, they've got this sort of funny boundary line that sort of wiggles. I can scale it. Do you want me to get it up and scale it? Obviously I can't scale because it's not accurate. I mean, my feeling would be there's a metre between the boundaries.
Okay, but obviously the flank walls come very close to each other, and whilst there is a hip element to the roof, it's still created.
You've got the plan, is it?
I probably
There was a.
Here it is.
Yeah, I don't know what that's the scale was.
That's the design.
Yeah. It doesn't show the dividing boundary though, does it?
No, it just shows sort of down and stuff. But actually it's not going to look like that on the street scene anyway, is it? Because this one's tough.
No.
Yeah.
So, do you have any?
I mean, fact that that's tucked behind as well, I think that would be out of character with pictures of the street scene. I wasn't aware of the peculiar garage situations on the plots either, from looking at them. I think that's another detrimental consideration, yeah. And I think it's over-development in that as well.
Okay.
I'd say they both look far too wide for the plot. This one's right up to this boundary, this one's right up to the driveway here. And of course, my major concern is those four-bedroom properties.
Yeah.
And 2 parking spaces.
Yeah.
Well, certainly it just seems like there's 2 for this one. You might get 3 on there, albeit in the line, which is not greatly practical.
I think the report highlighted as well needs to be another 1.5 parking spaces for the property, I think.
Well, I think when we look at the whole site then, there is then a general issue about how much parking has been made available. And of course, there is the issue of visitors, for instance.
Yeah.
And
The bins and the rubbish bins
Width of the
collecting.
access road.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so we're at least expressing concerns about these 2 properties for the reasons that we've highlighted. So it's the scale in relation to the plot width, proximity of the 2 properties.
Yeah.
We don't like the impractical garage to the rear. Okay, well let's widen it out then, and I can remember this. Well, firstly, just let me mention a couple of things which came up that Jackie mentioned. I must admit, I didn't. When this was considered before, my recollection was that there was an intention that the refuse lorries would actually be able to come up here and use the turning circle.
Yes. 2 years ago, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. Now, what I can't remember having seen was whether that was discounted and that whether there would be, the bins would have to be delivered to the front of the access drive.
How's the emergency vehicle access?
Well, that has to, the access drive has to be built to a certain standard in order to enable fire engines to get down there. I have to say, the previous application, have you got the layout, the block plan?
Here, look at the pits.
Well,
Much further in.
that's the current house
Yeah.
that's there at the moment, Bill.
I have got, underneath here, I did have
It would just be quite good just to see whether there is a block plan.
So this was the one that was the last one. This was the 2012 application.
So this is the one that was withdrawn.
Yes, so this is the latest, yes. And I've got the one before that as well that went to appeal and then was dismissed. This one didn't go as far as that. I mean, there's much more scope for, yeah.
But is this house not on this one?
Well, in the previous
The
guide,
layout is
it was
different.
a semi. I think in this one, it was a massive house. But in one iteration, it was a semi because some of this land here is being taken for this second house, the plot 4.
Yeah.
There was 4 dwellings proposed before, so now 2 5-bedroom, 1 4-bedroom.
Yeah, this is, you haven't got the block plan of the one that went to appeal.
Yes, this one here.
Right, that's probably better one to look at.
So that one was the last one, and then this one here was the one that went to appeal, which was 2011.
Okay, and this is the one. So this is the one that had the
pair of
2
semis,
pair of
yeah.
semis on. But there was this. I can remember the discussion about this turning element here, which was considered to be able to accommodate refuse lorries and also emergency services. Okay, so we also, Jackie then also mentioned some of the drawings being Now, that's obviously not something that we're in a position to get our sort of tape measures out, because we can't actually get on the site and sort of sit there with the other light and work it out. But undoubtedly that is something that the district council would look at, or the control people certainly would look at in a little bit more detail than we're able to. Interestingly, this does sort of highlight how the orientation
It's changed dramatically,
has
hasn't it?
changed to tuck it closer to the access road, because the access road is probably by and large in the same place as that tree there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we then consider plots 1, 2 and 3, and particularly 2 and 3, plot 2 is the one that the inspector had less problems with, because it was that much further away from stonemasons. And if we... Harry, can you just pull over that one? Assuming that this is to scale. Now, sorry, before we go on, the way that driveway,
Looks like
it looks completely different to that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I think what they've done is they've obviously used this layout here to show how it's changed, and they just quite like they plans are inaccurate, really, aren't they? I think they've just used it as a...
In that respect, when the district just asked them to amend the plans, or do they refuse it because the plans are inaccurate?
Depends what level of inaccuracy there is.
We've had one before, I think that was completely inaccurate, we just couldn't go ahead with it.
Well, they're invalidated.
Yeah. So if we think about property 2, sorry, am I in the right place now?
They keep the plot numbers to change, you see, from each application. So that was the appeal, that was plot 4, but now it's become plot 2.
No, well, we'll call that one. So plot 2 is the one facing stonemasons.
Right, which is actually plot 3 on the appeal one.
Yeah. So don't worry about that. So we can see that the footprint of that has been reduced to a degree. But
has it just shifted a bit?
Well, it may have come out to the front a little bit, but it's in this direction that there are the real concerns.
I just mean, has it actually reduced the footprint and just moved?
Yeah, well, it certainly moved a little bit further backwards, which I think is a good thing. But that's the one that there was less concern about. But in relation to the houses themselves, which one is... Let's just look at the plans for plot 3. It's this one.
Is this the one causing the loss of light, this one?
No, I think it's this one up
That
here.
one, yeah.
Here. It's these two down, but most of that goes from that one here.
So, is that... Yeah, okay. So at the time of the appeal, the inspector had less concern about this property, but even still, the proposal now in front of us is reduced significantly on both in terms of the footprint and the outline of what's proposed. So my assumption would be that in relation to plot 3, if it went back to the same inspector and he was thinking about it afresh, as things stand, parking aside, that is a significant improvement on what went before in part of the site that was less contentious. Okay? If we look at plots, well, let's go to sorry, let me just get these numbers right again.
So the scheme that we've just looked at was used for plot 3, which was the concern, the one that was expressing the most concern.
What I was hoping to look at was plot 2 in actual fact. I'm confusing myself now.
Because these plot numbers keep changing, which doesn't help.
So have we got the drawings for plot 2? So this was
That one there.
and has it got the previous?
That's property.
And have we got the outline of it as per?
Here somewhere.
This
Is
one?
that what's
This
in
one?
here then?
Maybe?
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Right. So let's just go through that process again. So, planning inspector less concerned, and now we have a scheme which significantly less roof space, and so this is the side looking down towards stonemasons, and therefore the bulk of what is now proposed is significantly less at part of the site where the inspector had less concern. So what we've got are effectively a sort of dormer bungalow type arrangement. That's a little bit more complicated because there's some roof forms up here. But given the reduction in the bulk of this property and this proposal, and the reduction in its footprint on the site, the issues that remain to me are the more general ones of parking. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now let's move on to plot 3, which is where I put it before. And this is obviously a more contentious part of the plot, as we've identified from this drawing. There is a little bit of a sort of artist's impression, I think, rather than a very formal drawing. The property has come back on the plot. One thing that's changed around is that the sort of lower level bit of it, the garage, was closest to Dell Close, whereas now they put the garage on the other side. But as they've done with the other plot 1 as well, it's got this sort of crown roof structure. So it's got a flat roof, a sort of hidden flat roof in the middle, which contributes to this reduction in the ridge height and the reduction in the outline. Now, last time the garage was sort of built in on this side, but now it's standalone on the other side. And I suppose the cumulative effect of that is to make that a much less bulky structure. Now, if you visited Jackie at her property, as you were looking up the hill here, and if you were envisaging a property that's going to have a ridge height of about 6 metres, you got a ruler?
I have, yeah. I thought you'd be able to say it. What is? Oh, it is. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yes, it is. Yeah, I can do it. Yeah, it's off of A3, which means I can do it probably. Yeah, 6 metres.
Right.
Just shy of the.
So, this is obviously far more contentious, albeit it has changed quite significantly from the plans that were considered by the inspector.
Still proximity, isn't it?
The window to window, and Heather will correct me on this if I'm wrong, the window to window distances within the policy are 27 metres, but that in exceptional circumstances it can go down to 19.
Yes.
Is that the...
the window to window.
18.
The window to window is sort of pretty much almost sort of kind of back to back, but when you've got the situation where they're sort of not actually quite window to window, if you've got this angle going on, then it becomes more
So what would be the exception here?
Where there are no overlooking windows. And so what they've done here is put these roof lights in on the back side of the building, as opposed to the dorms that they've got at the front. You got the design of the previous one, Heather? Previous plots?
I'm not sure that I did go as detailed as that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are so many. This one, I've got it for this one, which was the last application that we did draw on, so I haven't got it for the application that we went to appeal.
Right, because these dotted outlines here are the appeal.
The appeal ones, yeah, absolutely. It's difficult to know where to draw the line with what to print off. And
so privacy between dwellings, tolerable level of visual privacy into habitable rooms and to a lesser extent in private gardens should be provided. The objective will normally be deemed to have been achieved if the following distances between facing windows to the rear of the dwellings have been achieved. Window to window distance 27 metres, and a reduced window to window distance of 18 metres may be permitted if the proposed dwelling has no overlooking rear windows on its floors and will not be overlooked by neighbouring dwellings with such windows. So obviously Del Close is not overlooking this property because it's higher up, so it's sort of one-way traffic. So, how do we feel about plot 3? Any views that you want to express before we go on?
The other thing we haven't mentioned yet is actually characteristics and the area as a whole. You know, you've obviously looked at these just generally being overdevelopment, but how do they fit with relation to these terrace properties?
Yeah.
I know that was something that was flagged up before, wasn't it, that they fit very well with Jamesman.
Yeah, and Mr. presumably his name was Farnsworth. Neil Farnsworth. I mean, he makes that point. However, I think I would have...
How relevant?
You're comparing sort of 1960s, 1970s terrace with these properties are detached. But I think I would say that other than a bungalow, a genuine bungalow, as opposed to these sort of 1.5 dormer type styles, I don't know how you would achieve anything other than what we've got here. So on Jameson Road, these typically the sort of typical pattern. Neil Farnsworth describes it as a pastiche, but sort of 1930s style properties are probably very fitting on Jameson Road. And then, so when you go into this sort of backland area, unless you went strictly for a bungalow, then the only other way I think you can go, because you're not going to create terrace 1960s type properties, I don't think, where you've got the topography in this sort of area here. It does strike me that 1.5 stories is a reasonable compromise as you make this shift between the smaller houses over here and the bigger houses over here. That would be my judgment. Question is whether they've gone far enough and whether the way that they've achieved it with some of these crown roofs are a bit of a fudge, given that these properties are sitting on still quite big plots.
Is this the property as well that's overbearing to these houses on here in terms of sunlight, in terms of amenity space?
I don't think light is privacy will be an issue, and overlooking is an issue, but I don't think sunlight. I mean, to these properties to themselves may cause a problem, but I don't think in relation to stonemasons and Del Close.
These are called lower than those.
What that one is?
Well, these, so these Stonemasons and Dale Close are higher up, aren't they, than the road, the land drops away as you come down towards Jameson Road.
It's the other way around, isn't it?
Yeah, so Jameson Road, if they drops down towards Dale Close, is it?
Yeah,
Right.
well, you go up a bit, that might be the highest point there, and
Right.
then you're down all the way.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I'm not actually, I think as you're coming up, the land appears to drop away roughly.
Okay, so are we showing concerns about this one still, even though there have been some quite dramatic changes from what was proposed before?
I guess still in terms that if the residents say the distance isn't accurate on their plans, if it's 22 metres instead of 23, then it should be 27.
Yeah.
So that, to my mind, that is still an issue,
Yeah.
Okay,
whether they altered their windows or not.
Privacy, overdevelopment, size.
okay. So should we go to plot 1 now?
Are we deciding not even to worry about design elements of it? I think there's just so much going on there, isn't there?
Well, have you got concerns?
Well, only that I don't think they're particularly appealing, and obviously these ones in particular.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah.
But we have to deal with as one single application, don't we?
Of course,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can highlight particular elements, absolutely. And individual plots you can inspect it up.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's just a little bit odd about this one is that bit of roof form which sticks out there, which proves it. Is that effectively the dormer, or is that something else? That's effectively a dormer, isn't it? That. It's probably not as bad as it looks.
Yeah.
It's that.
Yeah, it is. It's the door that goes the other side of it there.
Pippa, I guess there's obviously an element of compromise going on here, and this sort of dormer type 1.5 stories, in order to bring the ridge height down. That's why we're ending up with it looking maybe a bit cramped. Side elevations
Dramatically reduced.
yeah.
Look there.
Now, when it was on the plot before, the side elevation was more of an issue, actually, because it was all shifted over there, and you had the garage on this side. But now this side elevation is principally, it may affect number 22 a bit, but it's more right in relation to this garden, number 12 Jameson. But you've got some concerns about the design.
I have, but I think the others concerned outweigh it anyway. But
Okay.
I don't know how much take into consideration.
Well, should we move on to plot 1 and see where we are on plot 1? This is another plot that has the footprint has reduced significantly, and there is a much greater use of a crown roof. However, because more of the land is taken for plot 4, it is sitting firmly on the plot. The ridge height here is a little bit higher, isn't it?
Just go right up to the boundary as well, you say?
Yeah, so there's a garage at the side and there's a wraparound.
7.
Yeah.
7 meters, okay.
Is this the garage here?
Yeah, so
yeah.
you've got the garage sticking out, but there's a wraparound sort of single story
Garage ready.
extension. Sorry,
The garage where your pen was.
garage is there, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but then that wraps around the back in
Yeah.
this.
So
and
then
the
you've got
storage
the parking
section.
piece here, the front of the car.
So again, you've got, the eaves are quite low, and the windows at the front are in the eaves, at the back we've just got roof lights. But of course what's coming into play here is Westfield Avenue. And that house there, which I think is that
Number 7, yeah.
Yes, number 7. And some of the distances here are quite tight as well.
Yes, I mean, if you guesstimate that there's a window there, and I suppose what they've done by knitting this piece in here.
Getting further
Yeah.
away. But because this comes right up to the boundary here, it's sort of directly in the line of sight for these people.
I think it also gives the appearance of being visually too tightly packed in as well on the plot. And obviously in relation to the house in Westfield as well.
Now, this reminds me, before I lose my train of thought, another thing that Jackie said was that there didn't appear to be any analysis of the or any cross section. Well, there may be some cross sections, but we haven't got the same sort of topographic.
No, yeah, they haven't got the same site sections that we had last time.
And I seem to remember there was a suggestion that this property here, previously number 4, but now number 3, was going to be lowered into the ground in order to make it less prominent, but we haven't seen any evidence of that. I don't think it can be in this application.
So I think there was something. How many pages? It's very there's quite a section there. It's quite the same as the previous one. There's your plot 1, so.
So the suggestion is that the existing ground level is actually being taken down. But not significantly in relation to I think we've had a chance to see that.
There's another one there which shows the stonemason Jameson Road.
It's not is it?
I thought there was more of a drop down towards stonemasons from block 2. Perhaps we just looking at it.
No, exactly.
And if that illustrates anything, it's illustrating the sort of scale and particularly the height of plots 4 and 5, which are facing off Jameson Road, and then what they're proposing to achieve with plot 1 by having it effective for 1.5 stories. And I must admit, I thought there was a bigger drop going down from plot 2 towards stonemasons, and there's obviously no drop there. In fact, Hang on, what's that? It doesn't look like there's anything. Sorry. It's a boundary fence.
Fence.
And Laurel has, yeah, they're sort of highlighting how Del Close wraps round and is in the background there. Okay. Are we sort of in a position to council view overall?
Yeah.
We go around the table?
I'll start. Well, I don't think there's been, there's been changes, but I don't think there's been enough changes with regards to overdevelopment, loss of amenity, privacy, for the development to go ahead. I think it's just got the hallmarks of classic overdevelopment. And then you've got the parking aspects, you've got the waste disposal bins. So I personally think it's, as I said, classic overdevelopment of the site. There have been slight improvements, but not big enough to warrant any sort of go ahead with it.
Okay. So, are you in the territory of expressing concern, Harry, or recommending refusal?
More recommending refusal, to be honest.
Anything you want to add to that, or take away?
No, I agree with everything Harry said. I would recommend refusal as well, rather than expressing concern, although they've made minor adjustments to the property, I think 4 and 5. Definitely make me err on the refusal. The proximity to each other, the overdevelopment on the site themselves, but for me, the lack of parking, as you can imagine, is grounds for refusal. I mean, it's not even just, they're not even trying, I don't think. And if it's the case that the refuse bin lorry can't get in here, then I don't think that the emergency vehicles are either. We have to be contact, we've got no scale measurements or anything, I think.
Okay. I also am very happy to recommend refusal. There is something fundamental about this, or these proposals, in trying to put something on plot 3. That seems to be the sort of fundamental stumbling block of all of this. And if there were 2 houses plus the existing one at number 10, then one could maybe understand how they could be put together. But it's that 4th house or that 5th house, depending on which way it's done, at plot 3, which is has been, for me, has been a deal breaker all the way through, and perhaps to a lesser extent the one at plot 1.
I mean, if you look at it, this one here is the one that's had the most dramatic reduction, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we've touched on tonight. Are you happy that I work with Heather just to order those and get them in the right?
Yeah.
Get them so that they're...
In terms of ones according to the policy of the
plan,
obviously.
quoting the individual policy numbers.
Yeah.
Right. Is there... Do you need anything else, Heather?
No, I mean, I've made post-it notes,
Yeah.
as we want to do, so that's fine, and as you say, I think we'll work together with putting together a sensible recommendation for them.
Well, one other thing as well, we didn't talk about too much, was the extension that's been built.
On
They haven't got on there.
We've got 7 and we've got 5, eh?
It's finished in December.
They've already started building an extension here. So it's even closer to the...
Right.
Is it two-story and one-story then?
2 stories and single ground floor coming out from right by the holly hedge.
Well, we've still already got the impact of number 1 on number 7. So, yeah.
I mean, if they haven't started building the material, so they have to know that to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Or if there were plans, it would be material. Yeah. Okay. Now, just to sort of summarise where this thing has sort of got to, you'll recall that last time it was actually the planning officers, the professional planning officers of St Albans City District Council who approved the 2712 2011 set of plans, and that because it had been called in by one of our district councillors, Councillor Paul, it then went to committee, and it was a decision taken by the councillors of the committee that recommended refusal, and that then triggered the appeal that the developer made. Now, Councillor Paul had called it in again. Clearly, the inspector has given some very clear direction in terms of how he viewed this site now, and it could be argued, and I could well understand the officers coming to the view that enough has been done in order to overcome those previous objections. But because Mr. Paul has called it in, we may then have a rerun of what happened before, so it would be down to the councillors to come to a decision about it. And as I suspect happened last time with Annette, it would be appropriate if it goes to that committee meeting that one of you, and it might be you, Jackie, do your 3 minutes again in terms of setting out your objections to what's proposed. It may well be when it actually gets to St Albans, the developer will turn up and they will speak for 3 minutes as well. But it is quite, if you've got a bit of time, if you go on the St Albans website, they have links there to their webcam, and you can see previous planning meetings where people have given 3 minutes, express their case for 3 minutes one way or the other. It's rather more formal than it is here, and they'll have a kitchen timer on the go, and you'll hear it beep, and they will cut you down. So we might end up going through that process again, but certainly we'll be making our recommendation. It'll be, rest assured, it will be pretty strong, but there are a number of things which have happened here which in some respects, when you put in the planning application, you're dealing with policies that were written in 1994. Here, the applicants are dealing with a judgment that came from the inspector in 2012, and so he inevitably has tried to do things to address the concerns that the inspector has. So that's what will happen next. The dates for those meetings are published on the St Albans website, and I'm sure that it would be as well for you to keep in touch with Councillor Paul, and he will know when it's coming up, if it is coming up.
Right.
Okay?
The first sort of indication you'll get as to when it's going to be discussed at Council is when the agenda is published. So don't expect it to go to the next Plans North meeting. There can be quite a long gap, especially if there's a lot of discussion and consultation and research done before an application does go to Council. So you could be soon, or it could be closer towards Christmas. Okay, so just to keep your eyes sort of peeled on the district plan, so on the district website for the Plans North meeting agendas, and they come up. The meetings are held every 5 weeks now, aren't they?
I thought I was going to say 4 weeks, but...
Yeah, no, they are every 4 weeks. It's every 3. Yes, and they're every 4 weeks. So the date will be up there already. It's just a few days
Heather,
before.
you've got a tab up there. Just want to open the tab up?
Yep.
And then go to the committees one.
night time it's a little bit slow.
So we're talking here about planning development.
Close north, yes. There's different areas of the district. There's central, there's north, and there's south. So we've come into Harpenden North, St Albans, Clarence North. So you can see here the 5th of October application or meeting was actually cancelled. There was obviously lack of business or whatever, so that was cancelled. So you've got the next meeting 2nd of November, well that's way too soon for this application. So realistically the 30th of November would be the earliest.
And about, I think it's a week before the date of the meeting, you'll see agenda pop up there.
So yeah, you can see here, so if you click sort of on the date of the meeting, click onto the date of the meeting, it will come up and it will list who sort of sits on that committee, where it's being held, and you can see you've got the front sheet which is just sort of got the raw information, and then you've got the reports pack which goes into all the details of which applications are being discussed and all the papers and all the reports that relate to that. Quite an interesting, I mean, have you all looked at this before through the various 7 years? So yeah, so you'll know that there's a lot of detail involved in that, so it's quite useful to look at. 8 years. But we don't find out any sooner than the public when these meetings, what items are being discussed within the relevant meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah,
If
so
you want
you've all signed into the attendance record, I will write you all to let you know what our recommendations and things will be. Thank you. You're going to do an awful lot of paperwork. Well done. Thank you for your patience.
No, that's fine.
Now, did you want to speak?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I wasn't sure whether I would or not, but I think I will.
Right.
You're obviously not scary enough.
No, I'm glad everyone's gone.
All right. Okay.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, so we're moving to page 12.
This one has less paperwork. So this one, thank you. I've done a couple of screenshots to help us to understand the location.
So, and sorry, your name is?
Ailish Kennedy. It's spelled with an E though, E-L-I-S-H.
The lady's name's actually on the letter
Okay.
that we've got here. Yeah.
Right.
Did you manage to get out of work on time?
Yes.
Or did you sort of sneak out as quickly as you could?
I faced the dirty looks, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, we're
Right.
ready.
Okay, so we sent a letter in. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to read it or whether you'd like me to read it out as part of my 3 minutes.
I have read it. I don't know if anyone has.
Yep, so that's fine.
Okay, I don't have too much to add. I think I just really wanted to say that we can understand that there might be initial concerns of the committee that this could be an overdevelopment because it is a house going into an existing plot. So we can understand that, but we just wanted to point out some of the reasons why we think it's not an overdevelopment. It's an unusual plot for historical reasons. It used to be the show home and the builder's plot on the estate. In terms of overdevelopment, we think that because the proposed property is subservient to the existing property, it's set in at the back and the front, with the roof lower also. It's on the existing site of the double garage that is there, so it is a building there rather than empty land, albeit we recognise that's a single storey. So it's a second storey effectively going on to that space with an additional single storey porch to the side. We don't consider that the addition of a second storey is an overdevelopment. It does not adversely impact neighbouring properties. It faces the side of number 21, and there's no habitable rooms there that are being overlooked or looked into. There's still more than the required space with the boundary with the road, and that's unlike neighbouring properties that we've pointed out in our design and access statement. There's pictures of those at number 19 and 38 Beauty Close, which is very close by, where their house actually is on the boundary. We've met the amenity space requirements as set out in the leaflets, the St Albans leaflets, for both the existing and the new property, and in fact not only met but exceeded in both cases. There was a concern about soft landscaping, but actually where it's the existing amount of soft landscaping will remain, it's just being moved effectively. So there's going to be 2 car parking spaces for each house, as well as soft landscaping. And what we've pointed out in our letter is that actually that's more than a lot of the neighbouring properties can provide. The space, even silly things, we've thought about the space at the side of each house for the bins to go down so that they can go away, tucked away at the back, so they don't have to be out the front all the time. And we think that we've taken great care to consider the planning requirements and to be sensitive to the street scene, the amenity requirements and our neighbouring properties' rights. And that's it.
Okay. Right. Can I just ask one question?
Of course.
How many bedrooms has number 19 got?
It's got 3 bedrooms and an office and a playroom. There's a dining room, a living room, and a kitchen.
Right.
The office is upstairs.
Yes.
So, in effect, it's more or less 4 bedrooms. Really.
Well, it's not, because as we understand, well, it's not, you couldn't fit the furniture required for
Oh, yeah, of course.
a bed. I mean, an estate agent would say it's 4 bedrooms, but
Would you
none
fit
of
the
you...
cot in there possibly? And
Exactly. You couldn't fit a wardrobe, for example, like we have a desk in there, I work from home 1 day a week. And so, for example, it's the same, it's one of those houses, a lot of the houses on the estate are the same. You've got 2 large bedrooms at the front and 2 small bedrooms, if you call them a bedroom, at the back. But one of those bedrooms, which my baby's in, has got the fitted wardrobe, so then we've got the cot and the fitted wardrobe. There's no fitted wardrobe in that 4th box room, so that it's no space to be used as a bedroom. And as we understand it, the national guidelines on bedroom size are not met by that room.
Okay.
Shall I pop that?
Yes. Views on what's proposed?
I actually have to agree with quite a few things Ms Kennedy's saying. Firstly, I'll start off with something quite easy I picked up on. The soft landscaping out in front, Ms Kennedy is right, a lot of other properties on the estate don't have soft landscaping already. So in terms of character of the other houses around the area, it wouldn't look particularly out of kilter. The Bewdley Close ones, they do go up to the boundary line. That is also another obvious thing I've picked up on. And then again, in terms of the boundary, the space, the 3 metres between the boundaries, that's been met as well. What I also didn't think about as well was the fact that the back of the property will face the side of the one in a little cul-de-sac. So I don't think amenity will also be too much of a problem. So I have to sort of disagree a lot with what we've recommended actually. I don't think it would particularly be that bad. When I first saw it, I thought, this looks huge. But what Ms Kennedy has said, and I haven't closely looked at the plans, I've seen actually it's not too bad an idea. And I think a lot of the reasons we're looking at in terms of overdevelopment, character, I don't think it's as extreme as what we've got on the on our plan on our pack.
I must admit, I'm a bit confused about that picture from the street scene, because when I look at that, I agree with the recommendation here, and I think it looks too overdeveloped. It looks like that one property's been squeezed in there, but I can't see from how the orientation is from here. I can't see how that.
So well, this piece here is the new house.
And this is it, this
Yeah. This is, if you're looking sort of, if you look on it.
That's the current, isn't it? So that
Sorry,
might be better.
yes.
Yeah.
So it's, sorry, yeah. It's essentially, so that's the garage, losing the garage, and replacing it with a two-storey.
So the parking spaces, more parking spaces being created. In fact, they lost the garage, so they put more parking spaces in.
Albeit policy 40 would say for those two houses there should be
Quite enough,
6
yeah.
parking.
Oh yeah, okay.
Is it how it works?
I do, but it's not actually going to look like that, is it? Looking, if this,
I think what, I don't know if what might be confusing a little bit is the fact that, obviously that's two-dimensional,
yeah,
but there is that single-story extension going out to the front where the front door is. So
We've got the little sort of side bit here for the front door for the new
front-
build.
so the front door is there for the old house,
mm-hmm.
because this is that little extension to the front there. And then this is sort of sitting subservient, both in terms of the ridge height and its setback fraction at the corner there. And then, and the front doors at the side here.
Yeah.
I am concerned still.
I have to say I should have looked concerned. I think it would, there's a real danger that it would appear cramped on that corner, trying to squeeze another house on the side. And whilst the amenity space is both, correct me if I'm wrong here, one would look at both the front and the back in aggregate.
You see, I mean, normally I would class it being just the front, just the B and back.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, 56
look.
square metres for both properties to the rear, it's not brilliant. Now, I think it's 20 square metres a bedroom, isn't it?
It is in here, yeah, I've got it. It is in here. Which is where I got the... It's 40 square metres for the first bedroom and then 20 square metres for other bedrooms, i.e. 80 square metres for a 3-bedroom house. So we should, yeah.
And 100 for a 4-bedroom house?
Yes.
Does it say anything about front or back? I thought it
Just as private gardens, so I think they are including both, but...
I mean, obviously one characteristic of these houses is the front gardens are not fenced in, so, you know, it's not, unless children are older, then you would tend to just be extending the back.
Because, I mean, the wording they say here, the size of a private garden should reflect the number of persons for which the dwelling has been designed, their likely range of activities and also local residential character. So it is really sort of designed that you enjoy it as for your amenity, and you wouldn't necessarily enjoy a front garden.
So, I think your worries, Pip, would they extend to recommend refusal as opposed to express concern?
Well, I am concerned, as you can imagine, again, lack of parking, lack of amenity space, and just the street scene.
Because I've made my position clear, I would recommend refusal.
So on the wording that we've got on the agenda, how would you like to keep it, change it?
Well, I'm concerned about the amenity space of both properties. And did you talk about parking?
No.
I want to include that as well.
Okay.
But let me just put that. That's obviously not where Harry was coming from, but yeah, if he saw things differently, I'd be happy to consider turning that down. But I'd be interested to know where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, if it wasn't for the parking issue as well, if it was perhaps just the garden and we had sufficient garden between the front and the back, and that was the only issue, I wouldn't be so minded to refuse. But with the lack of parking for both properties, so it's not that we're just getting a new property with insufficient parking, we've actually got insufficient parking for both properties.
Does parking on the road, space on the road not count?
No.
No, okay.
Shouldn't. You don't want to encourage that unless you're in a road where you have no choice but to park on the street, i.e. Cowper Road, where there is clearly not on-street parking.
I mean, I think it is fair to say, Harry, that the whole situation is quite unsatisfactory, because there are many examples of properties being planning consent being given where the policy standards and then the amendments to the policy standards are not being met, and planning officers are also using the National Planning Policy Framework as justification for even less adherence to the standards. But I think I would have to say my interpretation on that. It obviously depends where you are in the town and how sustainable the sites are. But one particular characteristic of the town is, because so many of our residents are so affluent, and because so many of our residents work elsewhere, because very few people who live in Harpenden actually work in Harpenden, I think that merits actually higher standards in terms of parking as well. Something more akin to what was in the original policy 40, I think, is reasonable, even though that was drawn up in 1994, than the very sort of liberal interpretation that we've seen in some recent decisions. And if you drive up around this area, once people, during the day it's fine, but once everybody comes home at 6 o'clock at night, there are cars all over.
Yeah, of course,
all over the street.
I haven't looked at it from that angle actually. Up on the road, and obviously that's the corner as well.
Okay, so we are, let's just see if we can get consensus there.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong, recommend refusal, overcramped, on the plot, poor amenity space, might meet the standard but not ideal, and the parking issue.
Amenity for the
Yeah, we're sort of looking at both houses as the consequences.
Yeah, you have to look at both of them, just because of obviously the application we've got here.
So
The applicant lives there, doesn't mean necessarily in 20, 30 years they will still be there. You've got to think about the amenity space, you know, the amenity of the existing dwelling.
Okay, so that's the bad news.
Right.
The good news is we are simply consultees in
Right.
this, and this will now be looked at by professional planning
Sure.
officers. And I mean, the only other thing I would say is, I mean, one of the good thing about this proposal is that it's providing an additional home of a not too great a scale, because we've got too many big houses in Harpenden.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it is meeting a need,
Yeah.
and it's not being built on the green belt. We're accommodating it. You're proposing to accommodate it within our existing built-up area. But as you can see, we're just a bit concerned that it just goes a little bit too far.
Okay.
Planning officers may see it differently.
What I would suggest you do is contact your local district councillor, one of your ward councillors as a district councillor, and ask them to call it in. I think that might be the best route, really. I mean, it's just so that at least you can feel you're getting a fair chance to have it sort of looked at and considered. So if you ask which ward is this?
Do you know the Councillor
This
Ellis,
is
Councillor
South.
Heritage, or Councillor Heritage?
Okay, I'd probably suggest, I mean, who would you say? I mean, Terry, does she sit on
Maybe David.
Plans North, does she know? But David Heritage is the Plans North
Actually,
councillor.
Brian's there, so David might be in terms of responsiveness.
Who would you suggest? Terry?
Yes, well, either Teresa Heritage or Brian Ellis, because David Heritage is a little bit conflicted because he sits on this committee.
Okay. And ask them to call the application if the office is minded to refuse.
So that's the
Right.
opposite to what the other residents wanted. They wanted, if it was granted, they wanted it their day in court at the committee.
Yes.
If it's refused, then you want
Your chance.
your chance.
So that, to call it in means it goes to committee?
Yes.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
Okay, so, no, if to call it in, it doesn't necessarily mean it will go to committee, because if the officer looks at this and says, I have no problem with this whatsoever,
Sure.
it will be committee.
Oh, yeah.
But if the officer says, no, I really don't like this,
Yeah.
I'm not keen, then it will go to planning board and be discussed in the much more formal environment that we were discussing or mentioning earlier.
And then we would have an opportunity to make
Yeah.
representation.
It's much more formal. You have to express your interest in speaking in a set time scale, on a set day, on all those sorts of things.
Yes.
But all I'd suggest you do, get it called in as quickly as you possibly can, because time will be ticking on this, and then just keep an eye on the district website.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Help.
Bye.
Thank you.
Right, so should we go back to the beginning
Yes.
then?
Fortunately, we didn't have too many more applications when I saw the Jameson Road one.
Okay.
Right, well now this is quite interesting. Land to the rear of the Malta.
Yeah, this one's... Right, okay, let me try and get
This
myself
one's been going on
sorted.
for a while as well, hasn't
It has,
These
yeah.
ones just keep going on and on and on for ages. and-
Now, I put it to committee only because we have looked at it several times at committee. So, I mean, the wording I've put down here is the houses are now becoming detached.
Yeah,
The trees, shrubs at the bottom of the garden have been removed.
yeah.
One of the main reasons why I wanted you to look at this application is because they've got this bride selil, whatever you
Yeah.
like to call it, have been added to the study in the bedroom window at the rear to sort of to help with the lack of overlooking or the loss of amenity to the properties at the back. I'm not keen on the design of this funny thing, I must admit. So, you know, I went onto the internet and printed off what essentially this is going to look like, so you can see.
Did you say the trees have gone altogether?
Yeah, well, the trees, they've gone, basically.
So they've been cut down
They've been
significantly.
cut down, yeah.
I was going to say, I read somewhere that they've been cut back to the boundary in Hall,
Yeah.
but unless that's something older.
No, I think that is, yes, they have been, I think they've been removed.
I think they've been cut.
Gone further.
They've just been,
I read somewhere.
they've been dramatically, yeah.
But they were, you probably got it there, they were conifers, weren't they?
Yeah, they weren't of anything Okay, anyway, there doesn't appear to be any impact on the overlooking the rear. Seeking is the committee over the bride's scheme. Rest of the scheme okay.
Where does it say about this bride's
Brise
not on here, is
Soleil,
it?
What's
I think
that?
we're talking about.
Brise Soleil, if
Soleil.
you can say the French word better.
What is
It's one of these, basically. I went on and thought, right, okay, let me try and find what these funny things are.
It is.
It is,
Yeah.
yes.
So these are bars on the window. Well,
Go on, David.
well,
I've heard about these actually in my training seminar.
aha, okay.
There you
So
go.
what I thought, I mean, often on a building you will see shades on office buildings.
I'll tell you where they've got
Yeah.
them. It's St George's School. They've got them, yes, that come out. They are, so that was when I struggled to find them.
Oh no, no, those are the ones that come out.
Yeah, but they are all also called this.
Yes, they are, and they stop. You know,
I'm not saying it because I said it wrong.
but they stop the sun getting on windows and the
Yes.
building heating up.
Yes.
That's probably the better thing that
Yeah.
illustrates it. These are like prison bars to stop you.
Which are like these, aren't they?
Yeah.
I believe I've seen
They
some that
use
look
them
like that
on
on
very
offices.
high buildings.
Yeah.
For instance, with the water tower, so that when they developed it into flats, the people couldn't look down on the...
Oh, what, directly out?
Yeah, they could only see, they could only see out, but it had to be really, really high up, but they couldn't look down to people's gardens.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay,
So,
so
yeah.
was the view on the planning training that these were acceptable?
Yeah. Well, for that scenario, it only was obviously a huge...
Yeah, whereas this is obviously on a domestic scale, and
I was fancying on my back window.
no.
No, that's...
So, have you got anything else you wanted to mention?
No, not really. I mean, obviously we had no... I've got the plans for the previous application. We essentially never had a problem with it. But with these funny things, I just thought,
Right. Well, I must admit, I don't know. Did that go to plan A?
yes, we've looked at all of them, I think.
Well, I think it looks a shocker,
Me
really.
too.
Well, the previous
The
version.
previous version, yeah.
So, well, the fact is, I mean, we've got the topography, because it's quite a slope going down the hill, Southview Road here. But they've decided to create them into two detached houses, which I think is an improvement on
Yeah,
the
the roof form was very...
The previous
I can't
application.
imagine that I did that.
Maybe you weren't the chair, David.
Maybe not. No. Okay.
Could have been Councillor Ellis who felt differently maybe about the East Ward.
So the other thing here is these are on 4 stories. This is a lot of accommodation.
Is it still going in the basement?
There's basement, ground, first floor, and then up in the roof. So they're 4 beds plus all the accommodation in the basement. There was an integral garage and 1 parking space. Am I right in saying?
Yes. Yes,
Which
yes.
doesn't
Really meet the
I think part of their argument was that there's no car park.
all opposite.
Which is nearly always full and doesn't always necessarily have to be a free car park.
Yeah, precisely.
But yeah, I mean, arguably this is a bit more of a sustainable location than, let's say, Cranbourne Close was.
Cranbourne Drive.
You try catching the bus.
So, they're obviously concerned about these properties overlooking the 2 properties
At the back.
at the back before you get to the church.
Yeah.
And that's why the Brise Soleil. So
Which
can you see
one?
the church, which is that T-shape?
This thing here, yeah.
So those 2 houses in the trees, well, that one nearest,
Here?
there's one there, and there's one further down. Towards, yeah. So by putting these 2 whoppers on here, because that will go.
Oh, is this one going? I was going to say.
Yeah.
Can't remember. But yeah, it's like that. Because this is higher up, isn't it? So this is going. They're going to be overbearing on because that's not done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because St Albans only refused it really on the basis of that. Restricted outlook to the first floor rear bedrooms and the restricted size of the proposed rear gardens. Well, I think they think by getting rid of the trees or reducing the trees, putting this.
But, isn't it, I read somewhere that it was only 10 metres.
To the fence at the back.
Yeah. And they argued that the trees provided privacy.
Yeah.
So to my mind, if the trees can be cut down at any stage, if they haven't already been cut down. So then you've got, only 10 metres instead of 13.5.
So, and did the previous one have a basement and all the went with it? Well, there's 4 rooms, one of which is a TV room.
They didn't. I didn't remember a basement before. But yeah, we've got in this one we've got TV room and storage and utilities in the basement.
And wasn't there also something in the previous refusals, a condition that they don't convert the garage to living space?
Yeah, that's what I read somewhere on here. Permission not to be granted in future for the conversion of the garages to habitable space. And that's what HCC recommended last time.
Yeah, and obviously that was refused by the board anyway.
Can they enforce that?
Yes.
Yeah.
What happens when somebody does convert it to
So they'll have to change it back.
Well, if somebody notices,
Yeah.
or if they come, if they do it without planning consent, so yeah, they have to notice it. Okay. Now, let's forget what we said before, because that it's material. I have to say I've got some concern. I've got concerns about the parking. I've got concerns about the 4 rear gardens for such large homes. Sorry?
How big are they?
Garden's 130 square metres. Well, one's 136 and one's 119.
Okay, so 40
3 bedrooms.
plus
40 plus 20 for, actually 100 of them, isn't it?
100.
So they are achieving that.
But given the baseline as well, these are sort of big family homes now. So poor amenity space, I would be
Poor.
I mean, I know that last lady was saying about the dimensions of the room, whether you can class them as bedrooms. And I don't know if they...
There's no windows in that for a start, so you wouldn't have that as a bedroom.
Actually, it'd be really good for me.
Well,
You don't like light?
No, very like sleep up.
sorry, are you looking at the office study?
No, Pitt's looking in the basement.
Okay.
2 storage rooms, TV room, utility room.
Because actually they're classifying one of the first floor rooms as an office, which is a joke.
Yeah, definitely at that size.
So they're actually...
So it's 4 beds. Good sized beds, they're all double. So I'm
quite enormous, aren't they?
Yeah.
Can I have a look at some of these?
Straight away, by having a basement, you're going to add height to it anyway, aren't you? Even though there is always that slight increase.
And there's actually no issue about loss of amenity for the back of the pub, I don't think, is there, from the safe code?
No, it doesn't affect their... Because, I mean, I suppose actually the first thing we should come to a view on is, are we happy to see this land go to residential?
Because what was it used for before it was all cleared? It was just
For the
a
garden,
It was a pub garden.
Was it?
Well, all of it? All of this bit? Or
I don't know,
just this bit up to... Because I think there's a boundary like here. I'm pretty sure there's a boundary here. So I looked at it on the Google whatever, and I've seen sort of the area a little bit because it's a pub. There's like a boundary I think here, and then there's this bit, which I'm guessing was the garden. Just don't quote me on that though, but that's what I think.
Change of use is part of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I guess it was classified as pub garden, whether
But we'd have no objection to that, I take it?
I don't.
No, okay, so we're quite happy to go for the
There's
residential.
no objection from the pub either as well,
No.
with regards to the application, so
Yeah,
that's,
I don't know what the ownership of it is, but that's the ownership of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I say, I would like to express concerns, but if others see it differently in terms of they feel stronger about it, or they think it's a cracking good scheme and that we should get on with it, then
I think it is good, but I do think there are concerns that you have raised which are quite legitimate. Yeah, I think you're right in terms of it's got amenity space, but I think that's, well, I suppose you said not to have a look at what's been said before, but with regards to if it's enough, it's questionable, and then the parking. But I think you could get houses on there and it would be okay, but there are some concerns like I raised, like David said.
I mean, if they put in houses very similar to what we've got going on the old Pinewood site at the moment, then that'd be a much more agreeable
Yeah,
scheme, wouldn't
yeah.
it, really?
What's the
A simple,
site? Which one was
next to the red cow.
oh yes,
Westfield Road,
Westfield
yeah,
Road at the
yeah.
bottom,
So,
I
you know,
know,
they are
yeah.
good,
or
sensible
indeed,
family homes.
I might be wrong, but the ones at the top of Southview are a slightly nicer scale, and these are just too much when the road is so good.
I mean, they have reduced because you've got 2 4-bedroom on the previous one, 3 3-bed, so they are steadily reducing them. So I've noticed that they have looked at that road, gone make them smaller, but whether or not they've made
hang
them
on,
small enough.
so these are 4-bed by any
Okay.
other
Yeah.
description, how you see that. So this is the first floor,
Yeah.
master bedroom, bedroom 1,
Yeah.
office.
Oh yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
When you
It's
put-
larger than the bedroom.
Yeah.
And then you've got one up in the attic as well.
Yeah, so they've just probably just put that there to say, well, it's not bedroom. Yeah. It's just a
They're doing
but
it
okay.
to satisfy the parking
Yeah,
situation.
sure. Yeah.
So in terms of looking at this one compared to the last one in Cranbourne Drive that we've recommended refusal, I don't see that there's much difference really, most of the things.
So,
Very similar.
the committee considers this
Yeah.
property four bedroom with basement. Sorry, this is after we've dealt with the resident, the committee's happy to see the site.
Is there much space between them?
Substitute change of use. I think that's where I got my meter from, actually. You have to have a meter between plots 4 and plots 5 at Jameson Road. I think this is where I've read that it's a meter.
I've got 1,000 there.
Yeah, which is for such a tall building.
That's very
So the committee view this application as, do you want to say no development?
Yeah.
So presumably they have no windows inside these,
Providing insufficient parking and poor amenity space to the rear as such
For its intended occupants, am I right?
for these large family size houses.
do you want to say anything about proximity to the property behind?
Well, yeah,
Do we want to say that we're concerned that the previous reasons for refusal from the district haven't been fully addressed? Because that was one of the main reasons that it was refused last time.
Yeah, right.
yes, and that the proposal for the brief delay is evidence of
Yeah.
the dominance of
To be honest,
these buildings in relation to, we probably could name them actually, do we know the numbers?
Do you want me to read
What's
it?
that one?
104, and that's Mrs. Church.
Okay, so that will be,
That's 106, that's 108.
yeah, so 104 and 106 Lower Luton Road.
Okay, so it is.
Yeah, over dominance, accumulation. With evidence of.
Yeah.
And also, is there anything to stop people taking these off after that? Nothing.
And they're just, I think they're a poor addition to something like this, really. Obviously, it's
It's a
not.
way of trying to get around something.
It's someone's
It looks like a prison.
bedroom, it's awful. Okay, so I was saying about this briefly. Okay, proof that the,
Is evidence.
yeah,
Do you know if these buildings are staying?
I think they were gone or going.
Well, because I couldn't see how they could stay, and yet I saw one plan somewhere where they looked like they were still in the garden.
Which building?
There's another one there, isn't there, that
Yeah.
is gone.
okay. It's evidence, so it is evidence of this. Is that the,
You've got the overdone,
yes, yeah,
Okay. All right,
yes.
good. Right, let's move on now.
Moving on. I think I must have felled several few trees with the papers
Oh, God, yeah.
this time. All that lot for Jameson Road.
When you didn't
Print them out because they posted through the.
I didn't, but I didn't know that they were going to do that.
Right.
when you
Just wondering what that is.
when you pulled out the previous applications, are you printing those off or did you have those?
Oh no, I didn't know. They're long gone.
Okay.
I can't, we just have to space those to keep hands
Yeah.
for 18 months.
Okay, so we're heading to
What's going
Okay,
now?
now.
33 Crossroads. Now, I'm quite happy with this recommendation.
Yes, we cannot see there is any change to the approved scheme.
Hmm.
Okay? Yeah. No objection to Stewart Road.
A nice improvement to the front of the property, the neighbour has similar outside conservation.
Good.
We've done Jameson.
Granwood Park School. Now, I mean, I know Bert has received some correspondence from people about this, but my gut feeling was that that's fine. The school sports hall has been used until 9 p.m. in the past for football. So it's basically all of them applied because they realised that they're outside of their licensed hours. HCC Environmental Compliance has had no objection to the change. No objections on the web, not conservation only. So I just sort of basically said what I said.
Yeah, completely agree.
There's been no objection.
No.
I did wonder if I should declare an interest for that, but let's do it over that. Right.
52 Picture Lane. The proposed scheme differs little from the previous application that HCC had no objection to. The roof form on the proposal is more sympathetic than the previous application.
Okay. We've done Cranbourne Drive.
What's Lodge is a bit of a sort of a tandem application because we've got one for listed building consent. So this application mirrors the previously withdrawn application from 2014. That application had a letter of support. HCC had no problem with the proposal. So I just said repeat the motion.
Yep, happy. Now this is ginormous. This one.
Park Avenue North.
Yeah. What are you going to say about that?
To keep working. The proposed scheme does not really differ from the approved scheme, only a change to the chimney that I can see.
Okay. So
I'll just repeat the wording from the previous application.
15, 12, 24 was permitted. So okay, yeah. Was this about obscured glass as well? Was there some changing?
Yeah, that was another one, wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay, but there's very little difference.
Yeah,
even
it's kind of, you lay the plans out next to each other and you think, right, okay, what can I see that's different? And the chimney looked like it was the only thing that could change.
Okay, so then our next door neighbours here at 25 Leighton Road.
Okay, the proposal is essentially the same as 1429 that was invalid for admin reasons as as opposed to planning reasons.
Ah, now somebody told me that had been thrown out.
It
For
was,
planning reasons.
no, it was just made invalid. I looked to see what it was and it was just made invalid. But the
Okay.
fact that they hadn't drawn something about, no, I know what it was, that they hadn't served the relevant notice on the other people that had an interest in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, if that's been the case, then we were happy with it last time.
10 Kirkdale Road, filling in a section at the back of the first floor level above the living space. Plenty of space between the dwellings to accommodate the proposal, locally listed and in the conservation area.
Yeah. Happy with that.
I said.
Hartwell Gardens, that's quite minor, isn't it? So
Only addition is a canopy over the front entrance. A nice
Yeah,
addition.
Quite nice, yeah.
Yeah. They're not the nicest of the bits of 1970s, those. Anything that's right in that little bit. Okay. So,
4 Crabtree Lane, additional single story at the rear and along the side, reconfiguring the site. Appears to be in keeping with the existing property and will not create an impact on number 6 Crabtree Lane, locally listed and in conservation.
was there some history in it? No.
No,
Crabtree, this bit of Crabtree Lane is a bit like Cravels. That something that looks quite reasonable gets chucked out for,
various reasons.
yeah, but we're not conservation experts, so happy with that? Yeah.
Okay, now this 9 Woodlands,
Yeah, now I've had a letter of rejection.
yes, and that's what, I don't know if it was the same people.
What about the Rothmans
This
Lodge?
one.
Oh, that's the same as,
Because Bert sent it to me today.
right.
Now, I missed on my history the application that is still pending, because it is still pending and doesn't appear as a history. So there is an application that was submitted earlier this year for 9 Woodlands, which we had no problems with, but District still haven't made a decision about it yet.
Oh, okay. So does
So,
this
yeah.
go any further than that application? Because
So-
So this is another application on the same
It is,
property,
yes.
even though they don't know the outcome of
Yes.
the first application.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bert calls that in, and he's called this one in,
Oh, is he?
because he was asked to by the people, yeah, other people.
Right, because the people who are objecting are at 38 Roundwood Lane.
So they must be,
And this one...
so here's the 38 Roundwood Lane
is probably that house there.
is there. So, with all due respect, it's over here. The house in
Yeah.
question is over there. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I may be very wrong.
And I mean, it is a low bungalow at the moment, but they want to make it into a sort of chalet bungalow.
Yes. But and this road here, Woodland, I mean, they're all essentially,
Two-story houses.
yeah. And it is, I couldn't go any further up the road because it was so hidden around the corner that the little Google car hadn't gone as far as that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I felt that there was,
Got no letter here, given its proximity and relational position of 38 Roundwood Lane, immediately behind its rear boundary, the addition of a second story to 9 Woodlands will have a visually intrusive impact on the proposed design of 2 dormer windows and a large felix window on this elevation will have full, unobstructed and perpendicular line of sight into our rear garden and specifically into 2 rear bedrooms, kitchen and living room, and much family time spent. This will destroy any element of privacy that remains at the rear of our property.
Yeah.
You don't see that?
well,
Is that not on there?
I would agree if it was sort of a house that was maybe up here, but it's just,
So that's the house that, I think...
yeah, I think it is.
Where's the drop down again, Heather?
That's 38 there, so it's that house there.
But is that one there?
Looking at the, bearing in mind that that's the road, that's the box with the square turning area. I think it's
Because it's right up against.
This is Hanover Grange,
Yeah.
that you can see there. So these are all Hanover Grange. So I think it must be, based on that house there, it must be that house because it is directly opposite.
So the hammerhead presumably ends there, and
Must
then
under the tree.
there's a
yeah.
drive going.
I mean, I'll try and take you.
So they're creation second story.
Yeah, but all these
So,
have got
yeah,
two stories.
basically,
Here we go.
it must be that house that's there,
Yeah.
because this is obviously the last house in the woodlands, and I can't go any further up than here, I'm afraid. So it's not that house there, it's the house that's over here.
Are you sure?
Yeah. It's not that house there, it's that house that's up here.
Yeah.
Because of that last house that you can see in the, directly there, is that house there. So it's that house there. See, that house is the one that you can see here,
Yeah. So
and then it's further along, round the other side of all these trees and,
that garage we can see. Oh, it's gone now.
sorry, it's just there, yeah.
So that garage.
Would a satellite view?
Yeah, Bing.
I'll do this.
I looked at Bing and
Yeah.
Such a strong objection.
it is.
I mean, I must
Just
agree,
any element of privacy remains the rear of our property. The photograph below, there's a photograph, shows that it's a direct view. Oh, okay. Shows the present view of number 9 above the hedge. No, you can't see it. I'm guessing, it can't be there, can it? Must be that bit there.
yeah.
It's weird, isn't it?
Well,
Isn't it because the trees are so big, it's just blocking the
Can't go any bigger, unfortunately.
adding a second
So I think
story.
is this house here,
yeah, it is.
and then it must be this is Round Lane.
Yeah, that's 38 round the lane.
So,
Just spin it round and let's see if we get a different season or something like that.
well, you do, it's funny, it goes from
Winter
sunny to
and summer,
dark.
Really?
So that's okay. So there's that direct. How far do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I must admit, when you look from there, it looks a long way away, but then when you look at it sort of in relation to here to there, it's maybe closer than you think.
Well, there's at least, looks like almost 2 houses between them.
Because if you
Yeah,
look
almost,
here,
yeah.
if it's that house that's there, and the house that's concerned is essentially the one that's just behind here,
Is there a gap between those trees? Like it,
I think there is.
Yeah,
Obviously the
on the-
canopy's really high.
on the bird's eye view,
Just go back to Bing
see
again.
like a gap.
And just
But
spin it
there's
around
a
one more
picture of
time.
it, Harry.
Yeah. See, originally, from
so
looking
when
at it like
these
that,
trees maybe give
it-
that false impression.
yeah, of complete tree blanket between the two, whereas that one there, and see the bird's eye, there's a gap down the middle.
You see,
Or
it's
perhaps
the
they just
same
cut them back.
distance, virtually, as all the other pairings going down the road.
And bearing in mind, these are all
But they're front to front.
proper, yeah,
Yeah.
Proper.
proper houses.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand it. You know, if I lived there and that was my view down my garden, and suddenly somebody was going to pop up a little
Pop up, yeah.
house, I mean, that's, you know, essentially...
Can you check the distance on that? Roughly?
And they've made a complaint now, haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't say what it
Yours,
is.
you probably got it on the phone.
Uh,
The yellow pages?
Oh yes, of course, yeah.
Mine wouldn't.
Sure, what's the trick?
They're saying it will also be occupied at 3 and 4 Hammond
Okay,
Road.
marginally, was that? So you're wanting to go for that one?
From there to there. Oh, there's a cell.
Yeah, there is a scale there. I was just going to compare it to that. Almost need a real ruler to be able to do it really.
Well, can you,
Well, I was just
how much
trying to
is
look.
25 metres? Is that,
The 25 metres is almost 30
Okay.
metres really.
okay, so put
So
it on
if
there,
we do it,
from there, no, where are you going? From there to there.
from that one there to that one there. Yeah,
Well, no,
so
from
it
the
is.
front of that.
From that, the front
Yeah.
there to there. So it is tight, I would say, because if that's 25 is 30, then it's, yeah, it's less. Isn't it?
What's it got to be, you say?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
equal
so
to-
actually, of course, they're not going to be looking from there, they're going to be looking from
from
the
here,
dormers,
yeah.
Like
It is-
25
Yeah, it's probably more than that, because the 25 metres on that scale there is just shy of the 30, and I've gone over the 30 with this, from there to there. So it is actually quite,
Right.
yeah, so I mean, it
Okay.
probably is nearer the 30.
And do you know what, so we don't know what the previous application said, what they were asking for.
I can look very quickly, won't take me a moment.
Okay. You just click the St Albans in the top left-hand corner.
So the previous application was earlier this year. Does it say actually in here? I think it was oh yeah, 0976.
Got here, the privacy and enjoyment of neighbouring properties was compromised by the original development in 2011.
That'd be Hanover
Ah,
Grove.
okay. A fact recognised by the requirements of the secure glass in the windows overlooking the property. So that would be the only thing, they have to have a secure glass. Or,
Yes,
it wouldn't help, I think it would help.
Bruce Soleil, of course.
Okay, so that was the scheme that we actually had no problem with last time.
So,
Is this the one that
Hasn't been determined yet.
so looking at the same, I can't tell the difference. So I don't know why they're doing the...
I wonder whether or not they're resubmitting so that they are getting the ball rolling again because of maybe they're sitting on it at the
Because of the
moment.
delay.
Okay.
You could find it's because the case officer's left and it's been given to another officer.
Yeah. Okay, so what, do you just want to see what we said last time?
Yeah,
Have you got the
yes, it was. We
consultation?
had no problem with it at all last time. I think it was subject to no loss of immunity to neighbouring property. So I mean, it's that kind of very bland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
somebody at 37 Ridgewood Drive has got a restrictive covenant on their property. And they said although it doesn't get taken into account directly in the planning decision, it says it is noted in various correspondence between themselves and the planning department. They acknowledge impacts and ability to develop the property to the minimum. No building or structure shall be erected or maintained on the property other than a single bungalow with or without a garage and greenhouse. Furthermore, in the original planning application in 2010-11, Andrew Evans, the BD's chartered engineer and architectural technician, states in his letter to the planning department, this property is a further added complication as there is a covenant on the property that controls what's going to be built. The covenant is owned by a property behind and to the side of Ridgewood Drive, and restrictions are that only single-storey buildings can be built on the site, and that any extension has to have the approval of the covenant owner.
We can't really comment on that.
No.
Yeah, it's
Beyond us,
although it
really.
was,
We just have to base it on the.
Well, are we happy to go with the response that was previously given? which, no objection, subject to no loss of immunity. Are we happy with that? Mr. Hart's not going to be very happy with this, but...
Well, we can't really go and change our recommendation when nothing has changed with the scheme.
I would always reserve the right, but...
Only because you feel it's Plan D that said it.
It's Plan C said it now. Are we okay with that, though? Yeah? Right.
It's really too far away, isn't it, to be...
Well,
It's on the cusp, I suspect.
it will be an interesting one to actually see what the decision is in the end.
If anything, they would have to go to Westby, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Or we can figure upstairs so that it becomes rooms that would have a secured range.
Or maybe if they just have roof lights rather than...
The full dormer, yeah.
Okay.
So you have one at the top, the Rockington Lodge.
Yeah, we did that one, there were two from
That
there.
was both, so we both agreed to the
Yeah.
same, okay.
Okay, this was an interesting one. But they're almost, well,
This
in
one
the process.
that has been decided.
Oh, has it?
Review, not non-material.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, obviously since I've,
Yeah.
okay.
Done.
So what about that one then? Because it was,
62 Willoughby Road.
the proposed changes are only very minor and will not cause any adverse impact on the streets and the neighbourhood.
Okay. So no comment required, no comment. No objection to 8 The Close.
Proposed is only a small addition at the rear which will be in keeping with the neighbouring properties outside conservation.
Okay. And then we've got Stoke
Well,
Close.
Oh dear Lord, yeah.
Pecuniary, personal, what have you interest in this one?
Okay, so
So do
Harry
you-
declares again.
Yeah.
Do you want me to step outside? Oh.
No, you don't. You've declared the relevant interest so far.
Right. So this is another sort of version of what we saw with Cranbourne Drive. A generous plot where the proposal is to take out the garage.
Yes. So basically, it's this plot here.
Actually, I've just thought, Harry is allowed to make a statement, isn't he? Just like a member of the public.
Theoretically, I did say that to my parents, that if you feel really strong about it, you can come down and watch it out. So, but then...
So where are you then, Harry,
Hang
in
on.
relation to this?
Are you looking at the right one there?
Yeah, she
Is it not over
there?
This is Foam Close.
Yes, they gain access in from...
Oh, hang on, no, hang on.
Isn't it that one over
It's
there?
up here. They gain access into up the side here, and it's here.
This is it. No, this is it. Just
No,
here.
Oh,
because that's our
This
apple
is it.
orchard over there.
Or maybe I've
This
just
is,
off a little
this
bit
is the
then.
top one. This is 11 Foam
There you go.
Close.
Yeah.
Let me
This
go
is...
into there now.
What is it now?
Well, it's our apple orchard or the...
Okay.
That's probably what I've got the picture of there.
So, you can't actually...
Here you go. I'll do on here, Harry.
But you may have the right house. Is that the right...
Yeah.
This one here is number 11.
Yeah.
Okay, Harry. So, so where is it on here? Am I in the right? Is it there? Does that
No,
is
no,
that
no,
orchard?
Here, look.
It's in the bottom, Heather. It's good?
So
So what is
this
it
thing,
here?
just here,
Yeah.
that's number 11,
Right. Okay.
and then this is...
If you swing it round,
Yeah.
then we might see...
Right.
that's
Okay.
it.
That's better.
Yeah.
Trouble is, Bing isn't particularly kind with that picture.
Okay, so they want to get rid of the garage. Whoops.
Oh.
They want to get rid of the garage.
This one here, so the garden, yeah, these are their gardens, that's up here, garden.
Okay, so you're one removed.
So you're, yeah.
Yeah, one removed, but it still obviously affects it will
Yeah,
affect.
you could see it from the back, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So they're getting rid of their single garage, and there will be 3 houses then that will need parking, and they're proposing that there will be 3.
To each one.
Well, they're going to have some just porches or
Show carport.
carports, yeah.
Down here.
But then there is also still going to be some. You can get cars up there, I think. And
It's very tight. If you look at this here, access alone concerns me, into the plot.
It is narrow, isn't it?
Because if you think that essentially number 11 is going to have no safety from cars coming in and...
So what they do actually with number 11, this is what I can't work out. Are they
Number 11 is being retained as it is,
They just lose their garage.
and then have this backland development.
Well, I'm uncomfortable there.
I am. I just think it's far too restrictive a site, and I've got a feeling that on this road they've already got a parking issue anyway. In the evening,
Most of them have,
and
yeah.
just the fact that that car's parked
Where it is.
where
Yeah.
it is as well. But like you said, I think there's going to be issues accessing the site. But I'm sure it only works out 6 parking spaces for the 3 properties.
The number 11 is a 4-bedroom one as well, I think. I think it's 4. So 4 bedrooms at number 11.
Okay, sorry.
And then 2.
So in theory it should be 3.5, and then for the other 2 it should be 2.5. Cramped access.
Yeah, I need to note that. So, what about the actual size of the... when you look at it like that, actually it's a decent amount of garden space, definitely.
They've got a big garden,
I think the issue really hinges upon the access and the parking,
Yeah.
really.
And then
Subsequent loss of amenities, number 11. Really?
Yeah.
What
Like
about
you said,
number 9? Amenity space as well.
Well,
No, it doesn't affect
Or
them.
10 or...
Doesn't affect them because they park in front of their garage and
Okay.
and they're probably unlikely to have many windows on the side of their house.
Yeah, no, they don't.
Okay, does that give you enough, Ellen?
Yeah, I think so. Okay.
Okay, now you've thrown the book at 51 Deering.
Okay. The revisions are mainly aesthetics and do not dramatically change the look and effect of the dwelling. HTC did not like the original proposal, so it suggests repeating our objection from last time. That's why I threw the book at it.
Maybe just
They committed it, didn't they?
maybe just the committee remains.
Okay.
Recommend for you that the committee remains concerned that the replacement dwelling is no development. And then you can carry on.
Yeah. Now, the oak tree.
So there's no way you're past.
It doesn't frequent all of the
Now, I think this has happened, hasn't it?
Currently closed
Yes.
down. And they're
This has been taken over by Nikki Hackett
at
from
the
the Cock.
yeah.
Well, except that the application is from Charles Wells, so I don't know what her relationship with...
Charles Wells, were they the owners of...
They were the owners of the oak tree, weren't they?
Yeah, true.
I don't know. Anyway.
Yes, you're right, Dave. They have gone ahead and done it. So, yeah.
They've gone
It's
ahead
not
and
quite,
done it.
it's not called
Yeah,
the
they're
oak tree
called
anymore, is
yeah,
it?
they're
It's
called, it's called the Oddfellows, which apparently is what it used to be called back in the
So we're being
day.
asked to
They've
comment.
changed,
Wouldn't know.
changed the name and they've done the signage already.
So really there were three concerns, weren't there? The size of the sign at the front,
Yes.
and then putting a sign on the sort of west gable.
Mhm.
Is there one there already? Was there one?
No,
And then they
no, because we've got the original picture here, so no, there wasn't. And it's being illuminated as well.
And then the one I felt most strongly about, but there was an existing sign there, is a whopping great big one,
Yeah.
pointing down Amesbury Lane, or towards the town.
Is that the one from the actual oak tree? This one?
Yeah.
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 Yes, you've got the small picture that
Okay.
shows existing.
Also those arms. Yeah, that's
I mean, obviously, well, this straight away, I think, is a locally listed building and all sorts.
So are they just, is this just a retrospective permission then?
No, they've gone ahead and done it. It doesn't say retrospective. They've just obviously couldn't wait until the decision was made.
so you can't really take the law into your own hands. That's bad. I mean, they've smartened it up. Yeah. And the sign, that sign did look a bit dilapidated anyway, but like I say, this is big.
It's locally listed.
Right.
So we've got, well, I mean, it depends on what you feel about the signage. We're in sort of the realms of policy 90
Conservation
and
area.
policy,
So what did they get permission to do before?
I suspect there was
Display of various illuminated and non-illuminated signs following refusal. We express concern on use of uplights.
so this is going back to 2006. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, but never. I mean, the policy was.
Some were illuminated anyway. Some.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you know, we've always had this thing. Although I have to say there are more and more places which have got.
I know,
I don't-
internally illuminated.
And other. Do you know if the planning people are?
I think they seem to cherry pick which ones they pursue and which ones they don't, really.
It depends on if they get neighbours
I
objective.
don't know.
Because you know, Pizza Express has been one that's been done for a long time. The one I hadn't really sort of twigged on until it got dark over the summer is the Harrison Murray
Yeah.
stroke Nottingham Building Society.
And then there's another one as well on the high street next to Lloyd's, I think. That's got internal illumination, or am I thinking of something else?
Oh, Ashton's.
Yeah.
Next to Barclays has got it as
Yeah,
well.
and then on Station Road is
Station Road is notoriously bad for it.
one of the estate agents.
But I mean, you know,
on it as well.
hopefully planning enforcement are doing something about it. But
Well, it depends on how we feel. In the realms of sort of policies 85, 87 and 90.
Okay. I'm certainly there should be a sentence in there. The committee is disappointed to note that. Because these signs are not being erected, they're just being painted. Actually, that's one thing.
Are they being painted, are they?
Yeah, that's something I don't particularly like about it. To be honest, it's a bit cheap.
But then again, the oak tree sign that was erected also looks a bit tatty though. Right, if you remember when it didn't really do anything for the facade of the pub as a whole. So even if they did put the signage on in terms of letters, I don't think it looks that smart either. Them having it on like that.
What, as the individual sort of gold letters?
Yeah, because that doesn't seem like that does it?
I don't know.
It's more traditional, isn't it?
I think they're just being painted on.
Do you want me to say something along the lines of that the signage is, appears unduly large?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
their main sign.
I mean, this bit's not painted on, is it?
That was a proper wooden sign.
And that looks, I think that looks good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the one at the front, I just think looks like it's about to fall off. You know those adverts where you've got signs that are, letters that are falling off.
I
It
mean,
just looks like that.
that there is sort of much more in keeping with the sort of
Traditional
traditional.
pub.
Yes, absolutely. And then you've got this, as you say, a much.
Mm.
I mean, some might argue that is actually a bit more sort of 19th century, actually, because they couldn't afford to do that. But I think the committee considers the signs over large.
Unduly large
Yeah.
locations, locally listed.
I think it will be with people with regards to whether they're painted or it's a matter of taste, but I think most people will agree that it is.
Well, this
large.
one here, you've got this added illumination as well going on.
Oh, is this at the top?
Yeah, this is the new sign, and we've got this sort of truss light going on.
It might look quite tasteful, but on the other hand it might not. I mean, I do tend to feel that one is unnecessary. So we're expressing concern about all these things, aren't we?
Yeah.
And so
What's going on? Radiator's getting drained.
the sign on the on the west elevation.
Yes. West elevation, yeah.
Is considered unnecessary.
It just adds clutter, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah. And then this locally listed building in conservation area.
Yeah, so we'll put in the web that policies 85, policy 90. Policy, and I think we've got another one here for shops and no, not shops and
I mean, these other signs on the walls are a bit.
They're like these sort of, they're all painted, aren't they? They've almost like got a proper sign writer to come out and do it.
Do you actually need quite so
Are
much?
they actually drawing them on like
Yeah,
in
sort of
black
actually
on
painted,
white?
yeah.
So that's how it looks now, rather than just an
Well, I don't know if
artist's
they've done it
impression.
yet, but I suspect that's an artist's impression. But
That looks like artist impression.
yeah.
Mm.
But they've certainly put that up, and there's.
Do you think they've done that because they knew they wouldn't get permission?
And because of they essentially the name of it has changed,
Yeah.
so they obviously wanted to promote the fact that it has changed.
And there'll be an opening date,
Yeah.
and it may be
Got it
clear.
with pub guards somewhere.
Okay, does
And
that
then-
give you enough?
Yeah, that's fine. And then Park Avenue South was just repeating wording from the last application.
Right, this is.
What did we actually say with regards to the phone and close one? What's the decision on that?
Which one?
The phone and close
The phone
one.
to close?
What decision
We
did we
did
make?
actually, we didn't say whether we're going to say express concern or recommend refusal for that one.
I think we were recommending refusal.
Yeah, I thought we...
Yeah.
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 Right. As a brilliant as ever.
Done.
Yeah.
So I don't think there was nothing else lurking on the agenda, was there? We needed to...
Noting plea appeals.
One of the appeals was against your one, David. Remember the advertisement?
You're
One,
kidding.
remember advertisements for the dentist or whoever it was.
An architect.
I'm sure.
This is Mr. Trent.
No, 22 Station Road is is country properties, what used to be Premier Move.
Yeah, Lance Trent.
Yeah.
No, they did.
In the post office, but the architect.
Oh, is it something different?
It was
Was
the
it?
one next
Oh,
door to
okay.
the post office, wasn't it? It was above sort of where Capelli's is.
I don't know.
Yes,
is
it is, yeah.
this one, yeah?
No,
Because the one, David, we went through, I remember it was
yeah, it's
the one...
about number 8 or something, Station Road.
They
Yeah.
wouldn't dare appeal on that one.
They knew that David said no.
Great stuff.
Okay, right.
Right.
9:45.
You going there tomorrow?
No, I'll go on holiday though on Friday.
Oh.
So I was going to say to you actually, David, I'll do my minutes and everything, and if you send them back on Thursday, we've got Thursday off,
Okay.
I'll get Mim to send them out to me.
Okay, that's fine.
If that's okay, so
Yeah.
I'll see.
So if we've got any changes, I'll just...
There will be changes. Obviously, we've got all the Jameson Road one to do. I'll do it as quickly as I can tomorrow, but I don't know what your commitments are tomorrow, so don't panic. But I'll get Mim, because I've done her last meeting when she was on holiday, so that'll
So
help.
where are you going?
Going down to Somerset, down to Chard
Okay.
for the week. So, yeah, just almost right next door to Ford Abbey we're going.
Yeah, I was just trying to... We stayed in a gatehouse somewhere, and I'm just trying to think where that was. I don't think it was Somerset, I think it was East
It's just nice, yes, because I haven't actually been away for 3 years then.
Well, you see, with all these horses,
Well, it's actually having another half that works on shift work, and I couldn't work it within my planning last year, unfortunately. To fit with him and to fit with me, we couldn't have the same week off. He could go on holiday, and then I could go on holiday, but not together.
well, have a brilliant time.
Yeah, myself, thank you.
Don't fall out.
Well, they're with my parents as well, actually. But that sounds awful, but no, they're quite good entertainment. They're good value for money, are my parents, so yeah, fine. With the dogs, obviously, we go. Yeah.
Well, there's their paying as well. That's
Oh no, we've done it split it sort of
okay.
four-way Dutch, if you like.
So you're renting a house?
Yes, yes, we've got a nice thatch cottage down there. And yeah, for
Across
the
the way,
week, yeah. To be honest, I almost don't care really. It's just nice to get away. But leaving my horse for a week is going to be a bit, because she's notoriously bad at injuring herself and doing silly things.
Right.
All right.
They're doing it to satisfy the parking.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So in terms of looking at this one compared to the last one in Cranbourne Drive that we've recommended refusal, I don't see that there's much difference really. Most of the things
So,
very similar.
because the committee considers this property four bedroom with basement. Sorry, this is after we dealt with the resident. The committee's happy to see the site.
Is there much space between them?
Substitute change of use. I think that's where I got my meter from, actually. You have to have a meter between plots 4 and plots 5 at Jameson Road. I think this is where I've read that it's a meter.
I've got 1,000 there.
Yeah, which is for such a tall building.
That's very
So the committee view this application as, do you want to say no development?
Yeah.
So presumably they have no windows inside.
Providing insufficient parking and poor amenity space to the rear as such.
Or its intended occupants, am I right?
For these large family size houses.
Do you want to say anything about proximity to the property behind?
Well, yeah.
Do we want to say that we're concerned that the previous reasons for refusal from the district haven't been fully addressed? Because that was one of the main reasons that it was refused last time.
Yeah, right.
And the proposal for the brief delay is evidence of the dominance of these buildings in relation to, we probably could name them actually. Do we know the numbers?
Do you want me to read it?
That one?
104, and that's Mrs. Church.
Okay, so that will be...
That's 106, that's 108.
Yeah, so 104 and 106 Lower Luton Road.
Okay, so it is...
Yeah, over dominance in relation. With evidence of...
Yeah.
And also, is there anything to stop them taking these off after that?
I think they're a poor addition to something like this, really. It's not.
Way of trying to get around something.
It's someone's
Looks like a prison.
bedroom. It's awful. Okay, so I was saying about this brief delay. Okay, proof that the
Is evidence.
yeah.
Do you know if these buildings are staying?
I think they were gone or going.
Well, because I couldn't see how they could stay, and yet I saw one plan somewhere where they looked like they were still in the garden.
Which building?
Does that There's another one there, isn't there, that
Yeah.
we've got?
Okay, it's evidence, so it is evidence of this. Is that the,
You've got the overdone, yeah.
yes, yeah,
Okay. All right,
yes.
good. Right, let's motor now.
Moving on. I think I must have felled several few trees with the papers
Oh, God, yeah.
this time. All that lot for Jameson Road.
When you didn't
Printing and printing.
Print them out because they posted through the.
I didn't, but I didn't know that they were going to do that.
Right.
when you
Just wondering what that is.
when you pulled out the previous applications, are you printing those off, or did you have those?
Oh no, I didn't know. They're long gone.
Okay.
I can't just have the space over to keep tags
Yeah.
for 18 months.
Okay, so we're heading to
Going
Sorry,
now.
now.
33 Crossroads. Yeah, I'm quite happy with this recommendation.
Yes, we cannot see there is any change to the approved scheme.
Hmm.
Okay? Yeah. No objection to Stewart Road.
A nice improvement to the front of the property. The neighbour has similar outside conservation.
Good.
We've done Jameson.
Downward Park School. Now, I mean, I know Bert has received some correspondence from people about this, but my gut feeling was that that's fine. The school sports hall has been used until 9 p.m. in the past for football. So it's basically all of them applied because they realise that they're outside of their licensed hours. HCC Environmental Compliance has had no objection to the change. No objections on the web, not conservation only. So I just sort of basically said what I said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely agree.
There's been no objection.
No.
I did wonder if I should declare an interest for that, but let's do it over that. Right.
52 Picture Lane. The proposed scheme differs little from the previous application that HCC had no objection to. The roof form on the proposal is more sympathetic than the previous application.
Okay. We've done Cranbourne Drive.
Watson Lodge is a bit of a sort of a tandem application because we've got one for listed building consent. So this application mirrors the previously withdrawn application from 2014. That application had a letter of support. HCC had no problem with the proposal. So just a quick motion.
Yep, happy. Now this is ginormous. This one.
Park Avenue North.
Yeah. What are you going to say about that?
Just keep working. The proposed scheme does not really differ from the approved scheme, only changes the chimney that I can see.
Okay. So
I'll just repeat the wording from the previous application.
15, 12, 24 was permitted. So okay, yeah. Was this about obscured glass as well? Was it unchanging?
Yeah, that was another one, wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay, but there's very little difference.
Yeah, it's kind of, you lay the plans out next to each other and you think, right, okay, what can I see that's different? And the chimney looked like it was the only thing that could change.
Okay, so then our next door neighbours here at 25 Leighton Road.
Okay, the proposal is essentially the same as 1429 that was invalid for admin reasons as opposed to planning reasons.
Now somebody told me that it had been thrown out.
It was,
Planning reasons.
no, it was just made invalid. I looked to see what it was and it was just made invalid for the fact that they hadn't drawn something about, no, I know what it was, that they hadn't served the relevant notice on the other people that had an interest in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, if that's been the case, then we were happy with it last time.
10 Kirkdale Road, filling in a section at the back of the first floor level above the living space. Plenty of space between the dwellings to accommodate the proposal, locally listed and in the conservation area.
Yeah. I'm happy with that.
I said.
Hartwell Gardens, that's quite minor, isn't it? So
Only addition is a canopy over the front entrance. A nice addition.
Quite nice, yeah.
Yeah. They're not the nicest of, they're bits of 1970s, so anything that's right in the middle is good. Okay. So,
4 Crabtree Lane, additional single story at the rear and along the side, reconfiguring the site.
appears to be in keeping with existing property and will not create an impact on number 6 Factory Lane, later listed and information.
Was there some history in it?
No.
Okay. This bit of Crabtree Lane is a bit like Cravels, that something that looks quite reasonable gets chucked out for
Various reasons.
yeah, but we're not conservation experts, so we're happy with that? Yeah.
Okay, now this 9 Woodlands,
Yeah, now I've had a letter of objection.
yes, and that's what, I don't know if it was the same people.
What about the Rothmans
these
Lodge?
ones.
Oh, that's the same as,
Because Bert sent it to me today.
right.
Now, I missed on my history the application that is still pending, because it is still pending and doesn't appear as a history. So there is an application that was submitted earlier this year for 9 Woodlands, which we had no problems with, but District still haven't made a decision about it yet.
Oh, okay. So does
So,
this
yeah.
go any further than that application? Because
So-
So this is another application on the same
It is,
property,
yes.
even though they don't know the outcome of
Yes.
the first application.
yeah.
Okay.
Bert called that in, and he's called this one in,
Oh, is he?
because he was asked to. By the other people.
Right, because the people who are objecting are at 38 Roundwood Lane.
So they must be,
And this one...
so here's those, the 38 Roundwood Lane
is probably that house there.
is there. So, with all due respect, it's over here. The house in
Yeah.
question is over there. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I may be very wrong.
And all this, I mean, it is a low bungalow at the moment, but they want to make it into a sort of chalet bungalow.
Yes. And this road here, Woodlands, I mean, they're all essentially,
Two-story houses.
yeah. And it is, I couldn't go any further up the road because it was so hidden around the corner that the little Google car hadn't gone as far as that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I felt that there was,
Got no letter here, given its proximity to the relational position of 38 Roundwood Lane, immediately behind its rear boundary, the addition of a second storey to 9 Woodlands will have a visually intrusive impact on the proposed design of 2 dormer windows and a large three-lift window on this elevation will have full, unobstructed and perpendicular line of sight into our rear garden and specifically into 2 rear bedrooms, kitchen and living room on which family time is spent. This will destroy any element of privacy that remains within our property.
Yeah.
You don't see that?
well,
Is that not on there?
I would agree if it was sort of a house that was maybe up here, but it's just,
So that's the house that, I think...
yeah, I think it is.
Where's the drop down again, Heather?
It's down to 38 there, so it's that house there.
But is that one there?
Looking at the, bearing in mind that that's the road, that's the box, sort of the square turning area. I think it's,
Because it's right up against...
this is Hanover Grange,
Yeah.
and you can see there, so these are all Hanover Grange, so I think it must be, based on that house there, it must be that house, because it is directly opposite.
So the hammerhead presumably ends there, and
Must
then
under the tree,
there's a
yeah.
drive going...
I mean, I'll try and take you.
So the creation of a second story.
Yeah, but all these
So,
have got
yeah,
2 stories.
basically,
Here we go.
it must be that house that's there,
Yeah.
because this is obviously the last house in the woodlands, and I can't go any further up than here, I'm afraid. So it's not that house there, it's the house that's over here.
Are you sure?
Yeah. It's not that house there, it's that house that's up here.
Yeah.
Because of that last house, you can see in the, directly there, is that house there. So it's that house there. If that house is the one that you can see here,
Yeah, so
and then it's further along, round the other side of all these trees and...
that garage we can see, oh, it's gone now.
Sorry, it's just there, yeah.
So that garage,
Would a satellite view?
yeah,
I'll do this.
I looked at Bing and
Yeah.
Such a strong objection.
it is.
I mean, I must
Because
admit,
any element of privacy remains the rear of our property. The photograph below, there's a photograph, shows that the direct view. Oh, okay. Shows the present view of number 9 above the hedge. No, you can't see it. I'm guessing, it can't be there, can it? Must be that bit there.
yeah.
It's weird, isn't it?
Well,
Because isn't it because the trees are so big it's just blocking the eye?
Can't go any bigger, unfortunately.
Adding a
So
second
I think
story.
is this house here,
yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
and then it must be this is Round Lane.
Yeah, that's 38 round the lane.
So,
Just spin it round and let's see if we get a different season or something like that.
well, you do, it's funny, it goes from
Winter
sunny to
and summer,
dark.
Really?
So that's, okay, so there's that direct... How far do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I must admit, when you look from there, it looks a long way away, but then when you look at it sort of in relation to here to there, it's maybe closer than you think.
Well, there's at least, looks like almost 2 houses between them.
But if you
Yeah,
look
almost,
here,
yeah.
if it's that house that's there, and the house that's concerned is essentially the one that's just behind here,
Is there a gap between those trees? Like it,
I think there is.
Yeah,
Obviously the
on
canopy's really high.
on the bird's eye view,
Just go back to Bing
seems
again.
like a gap.
And just
But
spin
there's
it
a
round one more
picture of
time.
it, Harry.
Yeah. See, originally,
so
from looking
if
at it
these
like that,
trees maybe give
it-
that false impression.
yeah, of complete tree blanket between the two, whereas that one there, and see the bird's eye, there's a gap down the middle.
You see,
Well,
it's
perhaps
the
they just
same
cut them back.
distance, virtually, as all the other pairings going down the road.
And bearing in mind, these are all
But they're front to front.
proper, yeah,
Yeah.
Proper.
proper houses.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand it. You know, if I lived there and that was my view down my garden, and suddenly somebody was going to pop up a little
Pop up, yeah.
house, I mean, that's, you know, essentially...
Can you check the distance on that? Roughly?
And they've made a complaint now, haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't say what it is.
Yours, you probably got it on the phone.
Uh,
The yellow paper?
Oh yes, of course, yeah.
Mine wouldn't.
Sure, what's the shape?
They're saying it will also be occupied at 3 and 4 Hammond
Okay,
Road.
marginally, is that? So you wanting to go to that one?
From there to there. Oh, there's a cell.
Yeah, there is a scale there. I was just going to compare it to that. Almost need a real ruler to be able to do it really.
Well, can you...
Well, I was just
How much
trying to
is
look.
25 metres? Is that...
The 25 metres is almost 30
Okay.
metres really.
Okay, so put
So
it on
if
there.
we do it,
From there... No. Where are you going? From there to there.
from that one there to that one there. Yeah,
Well, no,
so
from
it
the
is.
front of that.
From that, the front
Yeah.
there to there. So it is tight, I would say, because if that's 25 is 30, then it's, yeah, it's less. Isn't it?
What's it got to be, you say?
Yeah,
Okay,
different
so actually, of course, they're not going to be looking from there, they're going to be looking from
from
the
here,
dormers,
yeah.
Like 25
Yeah, it's probably more than that, because the 25 metres on that scale there is just shy of the 30. And I've gone over the 30 with this, from there to there. So it is actually quite...
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, it
Okay.
probably is nearer the 30.
And do you know what, so we don't know what the previous application said, what they were asking for.
I can look very quickly, won't take me a moment.
If you just click the St Albans in the top left-hand corner.
So the previous application was earlier this year. Does it say actually in here? I think it was oh here, 0976.
Got here, the privacy and enjoyment of neighbouring properties was compromised by the original development in 2011.
That'll be Hanover
Ah,
Grove.
okay. A fact recognised by the requirement to have secured glass in the windows overlooking the property. So that would be the only thing, they have to have a secured glass. Or,
Yes,
there isn't how I think it's helped.
Marie Soleil, of course.
Okay, so that was the scheme that we actually had no problem with last time.
So,
Is this the one that
Hasn't been determined yet.
so looking at the same, I can't tell the difference. So I don't know why they're doing the...
I wonder whether or not they're resubmitting so that they are getting the ball rolling again because of maybe they're sitting on it at
Because of the
all.
delay.
Okay.
You could find it's because the case officer's left and it's been given to another officer.
Yeah. So what, do you just want to see what we said last time?
Yeah,
Have you got the,
yes, it was.
consultation?
We had no problem with it at all last time. I think it was subject to no loss of immunity to neighbouring property. So I mean, it's that kind of Louis Bland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Somebody at 37 Ridgewood Drive has got a restrictive covenant on their property, and they said although it doesn't get taken into account directly in the planning decision, it says it is noted in various correspondence between the and the planning department. They acknowledge impacts and ability to develop the property to the normal. No building or structure shall be erected or maintained on the property other than a single bungalow with or without a garage and greenhouse. Furthermore, in the original planning application in 2010-11, Andrew Evans, the BD's chartered engineer and architectural technician, states in his letter to the planning department, this property is a further added complication as there is a covenant on the property that controls it from the bill. The covenant is owned by a property behind and to the side in Ridgewood Drive, and restrictions are that only single-storey buildings can be built on the site, and that any extension has to have the approval of the covenant owner.
We can't really comment on that.
No.
Yeah, it's
Beyond us,
although it's
really.
there.
We just have to base it on the.
Well, are we happy to go with the response that was previously given, which no objection subject to no loss of immunity? Are we happy with that? Mr. Hart's not going to be very happy with this, but
Well, we can't really go and change our recommendation when nothing has changed with the scheme.
I would always reserve the right, but...
Only because you feel it's Plan D that said it.
It's Plan C said it now. Are we okay with that though? Yeah? Right.
It's really too far away, isn't it, to be...
Well,
It's on the cusp, I suspect.
it will be an interesting one to actually see what the decision is in the end. I suppose.
If anything, they would have to go to a black room, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Or we can figure upstairs so that it becomes rooms that would have a secured range.
Or maybe if they just have roof lights rather than...
Than the full dormer, yeah.
Okay.
So you looked on at the top, the lodge.
Yeah, we've done, well, we did that one, there were two from
That
there.
was both, so we both agreed to the
Yeah.
same, okay.
Okay, this was an interesting one. They're almost, well,
This one
in the
that
process.
has been decided.
Oh, has it?
Refused, not non-material.
Oh, has it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, obviously since I've,
yeah.
okay.
Done.
What about that one then? Because it was,
62 Willoughby Road.
the proposed changes are only very minor and will not cause any adverse impact on the streets in the neighbourhood.
Okay. So no comment required, no comment. No objection to Acre Close.
Proposal is only a small addition at the rear which will be in keeping with the neighbouring properties outside conservation land.
Okay. And then we've got Folk
Wow.
Close.
Oh, dear Lord, yeah.
Pecuniary, personal, what have you interest in this one?
Okay, so
So
Harry
it's-
declares again.
Yeah.
Got me to step outside? Oh.
No, you don't. You've declared the relevant interest so far.
Right. So this is another sort of version of what we saw with Cranbourne Drive. A generous plot where the proposal is to take out the garage.
Yes, so basically it's this plot here.
Actually, I just thought Harry is allowed to make a statement, isn't he? Just like a member of the public.
Theoretically, I did say that to my parents, that if you feel really strong about it, you can come down and watch it out. So, but then,
So where are you then, Harry,
Hang
in
on.
relation to
Are you
this?
looking at the right one there?
yeah, she
Is it not over
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
Foden Close.
Yes, they gain access in from,
Oh, hang on, no, hang on.
Isn't it that one over
it's
there?
up here. They gain access into up the side here and it's here.
This is it. No, this is it. Just
No,
here.
because that's our
This
apple
is it.
orchard over there.
Oh, maybe I've
This
looked
is
on the wrong bit
the
then.
top one. This is 11 Foden
There you go.
Close.
Yeah.
Let me
This
go
is,
into there now.
what did it say now?
Well, it's our apple orchard or the...
Okay.
That's probably what I've got the picture of there.
So, you can't actually see that.
There you go, I'll do on here, Harry.
But you may have the right house. Is that the right...
Yeah.
This one here is number 11.
Yeah.
Okay, Harry, so, so where is it on here? Am I the right, is it there? Is that
No,
orchard?
Here.
It's in the bottom, Heather. It's... Yep.
So
So what is
this
it
thing,
here?
just here,
Yeah.
that's number 11,
Right, okay,
and then this is,
If you swing it round,
Yeah.
then we might see...
right,
that's
okay,
it.
that's better.
Yeah.
Trouble is, thing isn't particularly kind with that picture.
Okay, so they want to get rid of the garage. Whoops.
Oh.
They want to get rid of the garage.
this one here, so the garden, yeah, these are their garden, that's up here, garden.
Okay, so you're one removed.
So you're, yeah,
One removed, but it still obviously affects the, it will
Yeah,
affect.
you could see it from the back, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
get rid of that.
So they're getting rid of their single garage, and there will be 3 houses then that will need parking, and they're proposing that there will be 3. Well, they're going to have some just porches or
Shared carport.
carports, yeah.
Down here.
But then there is also still going to be some. You can get cars up there, I think. And
I mean, it's very tight. If you look at this here, access alone concerns me, into the plot.
It is narrow, isn't it?
Because if you think that essentially number 11 is going to have no safety from cars coming in and...
So what they do actually with number 11, this is what I can't work out, are they...
Number 11 is being
knocking-
retained as it is,
They just lose their garage.
and
And
then
they
have
promote
this
to-
backland development.
Well, I'm uncomfortable there.
I am I just think it's far too restrictive a site, and I've got a feeling that on this road they've already got a parking issue anyway, in the evening,
Most
left
of them
up,
have,
and
yeah.
just the fact that that car's parked
Well, it is.
where
Yeah.
it is as well, but like you said, I think there's going to be issues accessing the site, but I'm sure it only works out 6 parking spaces for the 3 properties.
The number 11 is a 4-bedroom one as well, I think. I think it's 4. So 4 bedrooms at number 11.
Actually, sorry.
And then 2.
So in theory, it should be 3.5, and then for the other 2, it should be 2.5. Cramped access.
Yeah, I can note that. So, I mean, what about the actual size
Overdevelopment.
of the... I mean, when you look at it like that, actually, it's a decent amount of garden space,
Yeah, I mean,
definitely.
They've got a big garden, they've got a big garden.
I think the issue really hinges upon the access
Yeah.
and the parking,
Yeah.
really.
And then
You know, subsequent loss of amenities, number 11, really.
Yeah.
What
Like
about
you said,
number 9? Amenity space as well.
Well, it-
No, it doesn't affect
Or
them.
10 or...
Doesn't affect them because they park in front of their garage and
Okay.
things.
and they're probably unlikely to have many windows on the side of their house.
Yeah, no, they don't.
Okay, does that give you enough, Ellen?
Yeah, I think so. Okay.
Okay, now you've thrown the book at 51 Deering.
Okay. The revisions are mainly aesthetics and do not dramatically change the look and effect of the dwelling. HTC did not like the original proposal, so it suggests repeating our objection from last time. That's why I threw the book at it.
Maybe just
They committed it, didn't they?
maybe just the committee remains.
Okay.
But I'm going to recommend for you that the committee remains concerned that the replacement dwelling is no development. And then you can.
Yeah. Now, the oak tree.
So there's no way you're past it.
It doesn't frequent all of the properties.
Now, I think this has happened, hasn't it?
Currently closed
Yes.
down, and they're
This has been taken over by Nicky Hackett
at
from
the
the Cock.
yeah.
Well, except that the application is from Charles Wells, so I don't know what her relationship with...
Charles Wells, were they the owners of...
They were the owners of the oak tree, weren't they?
Yeah, true.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes, you're right, Dave. They have gone ahead and done it. So, yeah.
It's not called
Yeah,
the oak
they're
tree
called
anymore, is
yeah,
it?
they're
No.
called it's called the Oddfellows, which apparently is what it used to be called back in the
So we're
day.
being asked to
They've
comment.
changed,
Wouldn't know.
changed the name and they've done the signage already.
So really there were 3 concerns, weren't there? The size of the sign at the front,
Yes.
and then putting a sign on the sort of west gable.
Mm-hmm.
Is there one there already? Was there one?
No,
And then they...
no, because we've got the original picture here, so no, there wasn't. And it's being illuminated as well.
And then the one I found most strongly about, that there was an existing sign there, is a whopping great big one,
Yeah.
pointing down Amesbury Lane, or towards the town.
Is that the one from the actual oak tree? This one?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, you've got the small picture that shows existing.
Also those arms. Yeah, that's...
I mean, obviously, well, this straight away, I think, is a locally listed building and all sorts.
So are they just, is this just a retrospective permission then?
No, they've gone ahead and done it. It doesn't say retrospective. They just obviously couldn't wait until the decision was made.
So you can't really take the or into your own hands, that's bad. I mean, they've smartened it up, yeah. And the sign, that sign did look a bit dilapidated anyway, but like I say, this is big.
It's locally listed.
Right.
So, we've got, well, it depends on what you feel about the signage. We're in sort of the realms of policy 90
Conservation
and
area.
policy,
So what did they get permission to do before?
I suspect there was the
Display of various illuminated and non-illuminated signs following refusal. We expressed concern on use of uplights.
so this is going back to 2006. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, but never. I mean, the policy was.
Some were illuminated anyway. Some.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you know, we've always had this thing. Although I have to say there are more and more places which have got.
I know,
And I don't-
internally illuminated.
And other. Do you know if the planning people are?
I think they seem to cherry pick which ones they pursue and which ones they don't, really.
It depends on if they get neighbours objecting.
I don't know.
Because you know, Pizza Express has been one that's been done for a long time. The one I hadn't really sort of twigged on until it got dark over the summer. Is the Harrison Murray
Yeah.
stroke Nottingham Building Society.
And then there's another one as well on the high street next to Lloyd's, I think. That's got internal illumination, or am I thinking of something else?
Oh, Ashton's.
Yeah.
Next to Barclays has got it as
Yeah,
well.
and then on Station Road has
Station
the,
Road is notoriously bad for it.
one of the estate agents.
But I mean, you know,
on it as well.
hopefully planning enforcement are doing something about it. But
Well, it depends on how we feel. In the realms of sort of policies 85, 87 and 90.
Okay. I'm certainly, there should be a sentence in there, the committee is disappointed to note that because these signs are not being erected, they're just being painted. That's one thing that
Are they being painted, are they?
yeah, that's one thing I don't particularly like about it, to be honest. It's cheap.
But then again, the oak tree sign that was erected also looks a bit tatty though. Like, if you remember when it didn't really do anything for the facade of the pub as a whole. So even if they did put a signage on in terms of letters, I don't think it looks that smart either. Them having it on like that.
What, the individual sort of gold letters?
Yeah, because that doesn't something like that, does it?
I don't know.
It's more traditional.
I think they're just being painted on.
Do you want me to say something along the lines of that the signage is, appears unduly large?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just their main sign.
I mean, this bit's not painted on, is it?
That was a proper wooden sign.
I think that looks good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the one at the front, I just think looks like it's about to fall off. You know those adverts where you've got signs that are, letters that are falling off.
I
It
mean,
just looks like that.
that there is sort of much more in keeping with the sort of traditional.
Traditional.
Yes, absolutely. And then you've got this, as you say, a much.
I mean, some might argue that is actually a bit more sort of 19th century actually, because they couldn't afford to do that. But I think the committee considers the signs over large.
Unduly large
Yeah.
locations for it, locally listed.
I think it will be with people with regards to whether they're painted or it's a matter of taste. But I think most people will agree that it is.
Well, this
large.
one here, you've got this added illumination as well going on.
Oh, is this at the top?
Yeah, this is the new sign, and we've got this sort of trough light going on.
It might look quite tasteful, but on the other hand, it might not. I mean, I do tend to feel that one is unnecessary. So we're expressing concern about all these things, aren't we?
Yeah.
And so
What's going on? Radiator's getting drained.
the sign on the west elevation.
Yes. West elevation, yeah.
Is considered unnecessary.
just adds clutter, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah. And then this locally listed building in conservation area.
Yeah, so we'll put in the relevant policies 85, policy 90. Policy now, I think we've got another one here for shops and, oh no, not shops and shops.
I mean, these other signs on the walls are a bit...
They're like these sort of, they're all painted, aren't they? They've almost like got a proper sign writer to come out and do it.
Do you actually need quite so
Are
much?
they actually drawing them on, like,
Yeah,
in
sort of
black
actually
on
painted,
white?
yeah.
So that's how it looks now, rather than just an
Well, I don't know if they've
artist's
done it
impression.
yet, but I suspect that's an artist's impression, but...
That looks like artist impression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they've certainly put that up, and there's...
Do you think they've done that because they knew they didn't get permission?
And because of they essentially, the name of it has changed,
Yeah.
so they obviously wanted to promote the fact that it has changed.
And there'll be an opening date,
Yeah.
and it
They've
may be
probably got it
soon.
in pub guards somewhere.
Okay, does
And
that
then-
give you enough?
Yeah, that's fine. And then Park Avenue South, just repeating wording from the last application.
Right, this is...
What did we actually say with regards to the phone and close one? What's the decision on that?
Which one?
The phone and close
The phone
one.
to close?
What decision
We
did we
did
make?
actually, we didn't say whether we would say express concern or recommend refusal for that one.
I think we were recommending refusal.
Yeah, I thought we...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Right. As a brilliant as ever.
Done.
We-
So I don't think there was nothing else lurking on the agenda, was there? We needed to...
Noting plea appeals.
Stuff,
One of the
wasn't it?
appeals was against your one, David. Remember the advertisement?
You're
One,
kidding.
remember advertisements for the dentist or whoever it was.
An architect.
I'm sure.
This is Mr. Trenton.
No, 22 Station Road is the is country properties, what used to be Premier Move.
Yeah, last Trenton.
Yeah.
Of this parish.
Yeah, it's
It was the post office, but the architect.
Oh, is it something different?
Yeah,
Was
the
it?
one next
Oh,
door
okay.
to the post office, wasn't it? It's above sort of where Capelli's is.
I don't know.
Yes,
is
it is, yeah.
this one, yeah?
No,
Because the one, David, we went through, I remember it was
yeah,
the
it's
one...
about number 8 or something. Station Road,
They
yeah.
wouldn't dare appeal on that one.
They knew that David said no.
Great stuff.
Okay, right.
Right.
9:45.
You in there tomorrow?
No, I'll go on holiday though on Friday.
Oh.
So I was going to say to you actually, David, I will do my minutes and everything, and if you send them back on Thursday, we've got Thursday off,
Okay.
I'll get Mim to send them out to you.
Okay, that's fine.
If that's okay, so
Yeah.
I'll see.
So if we've got any changes, I'll just...
There will be changes. Obviously, we've got all this Jameson
Yeah,
Road
I'll
one
just
to
change.
do.
Yeah.
I'll do it as quickly as I can tomorrow, but I
Fine.
don't know what your commitments are tomorrow, so don't panic. But I'll get Mim, because I've done her last meeting when she was on holiday, so that'll
So where are you going?
Going down to Somerset, down to Chard for the week. So, yeah, just almost right next door to Ford Abbey we're going.
Yeah, I was just trying. We stayed in a gatehouse somewhere, and I'm just trying to think where that was. I don't think it was Somerset. I think it was East End.
It's just nice, yes, because I haven't actually been away for 3 years then.
Well, you see, with all these horses,
Well, it's actually having another half that works on shift work, and I couldn't work it within my planning last year, unfortunately. So to fit with him and to fit with me, we couldn't have the same week off. He could go on holiday, and then I could go on holiday, but not together.
well, have a brilliant time.
Yeah, myself, thank you.
Thanks for that.
We're going with my parents as well, actually.
Oh,
But that sounds
is that-
awful, but no, they're quite good entertainment. They're good value for money, are my parents, so yeah, fine. With the dogs, obviously, we go. Yeah.
Well, if they're paying as well, that helps.
Oh no, we've done it split it sort of
Okay.
four-way Dutch, if you like.
So you're renting a house?
Yes, yeah, we've got a nice thatch cottage down there. And
Well,
yeah, for the week, yeah. To be honest, I almost don't care really. It's just nice to get away. But leaving my horse for a week is going to be a bit... Because she's notoriously bad at injuring herself and doing silly things.
Right.
Alright.
Councillor Christopher.